those who can catch it and who may happen to slip in. This one is called Philly Blunt. As we can see, this is continuing our Dutch Masters series and I'm learning some history from the things that are around us in our area. And yeah, this one is called Philly Blunt. The reason Philly Blunt, because at the moment I am in Philadelphia. Yesterday we were in New York looking at things. Thanks to all those who are joining. But today we're in Philly and we're going to continue. So yesterday we looked at the Dutch Masters of New York, which was New Amsterdam, and under it was New Netherlands. And we talked about Peter Stuyvesant and what he did and how he was in control of New Netherlands. And part of New Netherlands was Philadelphia. That all came under this same province that he controlled. Thus, the Philly Blunt and the Dutch Master connection. So next time you look at a box of Philly Blunts, you may remember parts of the story as well as you have with the Dutch Masters. So to show you the proof of these things, we're going to look at this sign right here, which is located on Philadelphia City Hall. And what you will see is the words West India Company, Dutch West India Company, and there go your Dutch Masters right there, live and direct. Hopefully all can see that right there. You see, and you see the years, the Dutch settlements of the Delaware, which is this region, 1623 to 1674. They go to Dutch Masters in Philadelphia, showing you that this was New Netherlands. And it goes on to show you on the left side, the West India Company and all those people. And you see the same guy that we saw from New York was right here, is who? Peter Stuyvesant. Go back to the previous two videos. We were in New York and Peter Stuyvesant has a statue. What is he doing all this over here for? Because New Netherlands controlled this. So here goes your Philly Blunt and your Dutch Master connection. Looking at the stuff that's around you to remember your history and tell a story right here. West India Company, I'm in Philadelphia, Philadelphia City Hall. Why would they have it? Because it was a part of New Netherlands, as you can see here. And remember we talked about the beavers? Look close. This is your Illuminati symbols. Look close on the seal. And what do you have there? A beaver. A beaver. Right? And then you look up and we stream back. And if you look onto the right there, you see the seal of New Netherlands and you see the beaver in the middle. Over there. Huh. The Dutch Masters. So we're using these symbols that's all around us to tell a story. We ain't gotta go sit in a library and read a 1,000-page book. If you just stop, look and learn what's around you and take a second to just look at it. It's located on Philadelphia City Hall. Right here. Tells you the history of Philly Blunt, as you can see. No sleight of hand tricks. What is this? Philadelphia City Hall gates. Right? No sleight of hand tricks. Here. We just saw yesterday. Here's another one. Here goes some tools. Next time you see it, check this out. I also told you it was New Netherlands. It was also New Sweden. New Sweden. You see that right there? New Sweden. Here's the story behind that. So the Swedish knew that the Dutch West India couldn't control the whole Connecticut to Pennsylvania. So one of their directors left and he started working for a Swedish trading company. Yes, the Swedish traded the Africans as well. That director's name is Peter Minuet. He worked for the West India Company and he left, and he went to go work for the Swedish, and so they took over this part of Pennsylvania, as you can see. Once again, for what? Illuminati secret for the beaver. And this became New Sweden. So we got New England, which is at the top, and then below that we got New Netherlands, which is that Connecticut to Pennsylvania. But the Swedes came over and took over that part, and that became New Sweden. This should be a clue to teach your children about the new world, if you realize that what they did is add new in front of the titles of their countries. And so now you can teach the children when Columbus is discovering a new world, this is what they're meaning. This is why they call Europe the old world, because all they did was, spew their wretchedness in a lot of ways and make part of the noise in the background. And I am in Philly, so, we live and direct, no tricks. And of course, it's gonna stop right here, right? So anyway, what they did was they took it, and now you got New Sweden, right? And so we see that. And so what we gonna do? Let me walk away. What I want people to do with that New Sweden information, if I can find one, or people playing along at home, Google the Philadelphia city flag. And what you're gonna see is that city flag is the same colors as the flag of Sweden. Google Sweden flag in one tab and Google Philadelphia flag in another tab. And here's your secret, right? You're gonna see that it's the same colors. Why? Because we just saw that it was New Sweden. So now you can look at your Philadelphia flag and you know that story. When you look at the New York City flag, you see it was the same color as Old Holland, and you know that that's what that's for. So I've been here a number of times, and if you haven't got it down here yet, you really should. This is the Octavius Cato statue right here. So this statue, he's important because he was one of the major figures for our liberation, and he's the only black statue at a city hall in all of America. And this is Octavius Cato. I repeat, he's the only black statue at any city hall at America. Okay? So check out previous videos. I'm not gonna go into too much history on him because you should know, and I've said this hundreds of times, he's a very important person that you should know. This is why he has a statue at Philadelphia City Hall. That's why. So I see it might be some abos or something in the chat with all this other stuff. Welcome aboard. Do what you wish with the history. But we're gonna walk around for all those who want to join me real quick for a walk through Philly. And maybe we can break down some of these clues so I can put it to action so you can see what I'm telling you firsthand. Right? Yes, the African suffrage movement, exactly, and Octavius Cato was a part of that. Matter of fact, that's why he was killed, because of suffrage and the right to vote, and people don't really understand that. People literally died for it, like that man right there, down there, died for it. Orange carrots are thus to honor the House of Orange instead of purple. Okay? So we're gonna walk down the street. We're gonna just walk around Philly for a bit. Those who are interested, we can break down some of these clues. That's what this one is about. So we did Philly Blunt and the Dutch Masters, and you got that information. So we talked about street names. We're gonna do it live and direct to see what I'm talking about. Talked about just Googling the street while you're walking around and do whatever. This is Broad Street, right? This is Broad Street. Here's number one trick. Why would it be called Broad Street? Look at the street. And people who know Philly know that when this was done, this was the widest street. This is the widest street. That's why, or the broadest street. That's why it's named Broad Street, right? Broadway in New York, same thing. They weren't that creative with stuff, which gives us the opportunity to break down clues. In Philly, down here, many of the streets are named after trees and so forth and so on. That's why you got Chestnut right there. All of Philly has no I ain't lying. They know exactly where I'm at. Right? Broad Street. And so this was all a part of the city of Philadelphia. And the ill part is that this was the smartest city created because it was planned out. And that's why it sits on the grid and it flows so easily compared to New York, which at first was not like that. That's why downtown Manhattan below Wall Street, the streets are all bananas, right? That's why. But, so this is the Union League Club, and this is where they signed up people for things like the colored troops. And Philadelphia is the best because, once again, if you look at the signs, no one looks at these signs. These signs are so impactful and so great, and New York has nothing like this, right? So it tells you right there what was going on. So how the colored troops get involved and all this other stuff, you have it right here, right? And another thing, you look, I won't get into the buildings too much, but there was a period called the Beaux Arts movement in America. You start to see all of these type of buildings. These ain't from the 18s, these is from the 19s, right? But you look and you can see where industries and setup and how things are go, because on the sign it's Wells Fargo. And this is why like the financial district connected to what they call Center City, because the city hall that we were just at sits in the center of the city, right? And this is where the water source was, whatever, and they built squares around it. So in Philadelphia, you got a lot of squares. I think there were 4 major squares: Rittenhouse Square, Logan Square, and so forth and so on. But anyway, we got this right here. This is the Union Club, and these were the people who, for the Civil War, took the funds, signed up the troops. So Frederick Douglass would have been here, Octavius Cato would have been here, and all those type of cats, right? So it's just walking around and observing. We ain't, sitting in a book and looking at stuff. We can do it live and direct with everything. As now we're approaching Walnut Street, and I'll tell you about the names of the streets. There's a Union League everywhere that they signed up, signed up the troops. So there you go. Well, let's see if I can get closer. This Walnut, that's Wawa. All of Philly has no. This is like, I wish New York had a Wawa. It's the greatest thing ever. It beats the bodega by a long shot because they make banging sandwiches. But back to the impromptu history walk around. Then, so you see that's Walnut Street. Yes, it is unique. Stop hating. So, like I said, Chestnut, Walnut, get the pattern. Broad Street. And along Broad Street, they made these. Like I say, if you look at the Beaux Arts movement, that's where you see these type of structures come in. And they build a modern city And if you look at it, you know, it's just hotels and stuff now, but you gotta look at the original signs on it, and you can see what the buildings were. So we walking. I'm actually trying to get to some places. Those who stick with me know, you know, where I'm at, and I don't know if they know where I'm going exactly, but this is the point of this, is just look around and wherever you are and study the buildings and why the train station is there, why the street is named that name, where the old businesses may be, and you understand how the city formed and why things are where they are. And it may even lead to say, okay, this may explain why the black folks is in this area and how we got to this area. And, you know, that's all a part of putting the pieces back together. Hey, African Queen. Okay. So, here we go. Here goes another tree on Locust. See, play this game with your kids. Now they know all the trees, if they're in Philly, it won't get lost, or go all the tree streets are. And so you had your arts come up off the businesses. That's why along Broad, you got a lot. I want to go down here. I'll be forgetting sometime, y'all. You get a large, all of the arts buildings. And you can see it. And along here, this is where a lot of the Jews live as well, going down toward this way. That's why we're not gonna walk there right now. I don't think this is YWHA. Okay, we have our local Negro Philly Tai Chi session. He probably beat the brakes off me right now. I ain't messing with dude. Okay. So, what else we got? It's just our Philly walk, our Philly history. Black folks coming to the story more for all those who stick around. You know how we do. This is just part of the story. Leads up to things. Yeah, it's a nice day in Philly. Supposed to be 80 today, I think. So they're very smart about keeping their history. Crazy with it. They don't let you tear down none of this stuff. You're gonna put your cleaners in some old apothecary from 1830 or something like that. They ain't tearing the building down. So you see the structure, right? So I'm gonna show y'all live and direct where you're gonna come. This right here, when you're in Philadelphia, is called the Library Company. I'm gonna try to get a good picture of it. This is called the Library Company. So I've said this on numerous videos. You want the primaries on a lot of your history, all those old pictures that you see from the 1700s and the 1800s and all that. You come right here. This is where you come. You want those to see where that Frederick Douglass picture came from, or where you got that picture from the 1700s from Ben Franklin, right here. I'm gonna say this so people know and see. You can go online and see. I'm not joking. If you really, really want it, along with the Schomburg, this is the building that you come to. And you're gonna know it because you should also take a visit. Smart ones have already Googled the Library Company, so I'm not just blowing smoke. So I know there's smart people out here. So you need to go inside at Dwar. I don't want to miss at Dwar. You gotta go inside. Okay? Wait, we gonna see Brother Malik? You're going too fast. I told you, just stick around. I got you. Because right next to it, you're gonna find here is where you find out more of the stuff. And this is called the Philadelphia Historical Society. So when you come and you want to find out that history that you look at, yeah, you know where I am, George. right downtown on Locust. This is where you come to get it. This is the Philadelphia Historical Society. And you get the information in here. You get the primaries in these two buildings. They're right next to each other. That's the library company. This is the Philadelphia Historical Society. You come get it from here. So they digitize online and keep hollering about where the documents and all that. I gave you two big buildings. You already have the Schomburg, which most people should know. You have your, what you call it down in DC, Library of Congress and all that. And now you got it in Philly. And like I told you, Philly has the signs. Let me go show you the other one, which is better, which New York needs to get. Yeah, Philly got some decent chronic. You just gotta have a hookup and leave, stop playing yourself. So, here you go. Among the oldest of kind in the nation, the Special Collections Library hosts many of the nation's important founding documents. Okay? This is where y'all come. This is where y'all come. George, I may or may not be down here for a win. I'm gonna walk around I didn't know this many people was gonna watch, so I'm gonna show a lot of stuff since people wanna see it, so we can see it firsthand. And you ain't just gotta talk about this. You know where to get it, and you can start looking at this city a bit different to put it together to get to it. You know, Philadelphia was the first city with its own African-American museum down here. This is before the Smithsonian one. So, Philadelphia Historical Society and the Library Company, the smart ones have already Googled to see that I'm not BSing about what's in there and add that to the list. And so we're gonna walk further down on Locust and see some other stuff. I used to go out to Germantown. Yeah, see, you in Germantown for dubs, you know you ain't got no hookup. So, like I say, you know, if you get a chance, go to Philly. Philadelphia is an ill city to explore and add to the list of people coming from different parts. And if you happen to go to New York, it's a, you know, hour and a half train ride to Philly. You know, you can still go back to New York and do whatever. But they kept their buildings and they kept their history down here, and it's important. And they kept the alleyways. It's crazy. From an old city, partner son. But we're walking down, be it oil capital. Yo, son, I ain't gonna lie, they not out, yo. That's true. Let me tell you something. I know a lot of places like to claim it. Philadelphia, amongst niggerdom, is the beard capital. That's bar none. I know it's due to the Muslim and Sunni influence as well, but when the beard became a thing again, Philly was already there, son. That's a fact. I know a lot of places like to claim it. Philly is beard capital. You know, and it didn't hurt that all of, you know, crazy white guys from Ohio and Pennsylvania started growing their beards back with the baseball and hockey players, right? So now it became cultural where everybody starting to get the damn beard. And then, you know, Negro just went nuts with it. Yo, Philadelphia, all right, let's have our Negro moment. Philadelphia is the only place, maybe Florida, where a black man could go get a job with a full scruffy beard and tattoos everywhere. Yo, ain't no other city where you could walk up somewhere and get a job with a crazy beard and tats everywhere. We back. Are we back? Yeah, I think so. Somebody put a 1 or something if we're back because the signal got lost. How they say it, can I be heard? No? Somebody? Help? Its closest hub, it can Okay, you can hear me. All right. So, I'll be back in business. So what they did is they make the research centers still around that center city, which is it, and Pennsylvania, Philadelphia in particular, because of the universities, have all the hospitals, of course. That's how we know it works, connected to it, right? So Drexel has their hospital, UPenn has their hospital, Temple has theirs. All these places have it. So Philadelphia also has a lot of hospitals for that. So there's a lot of research that's being done down here. And with that, you have a lot of older population that stays and lives somewhat on the outskirts because they used to have, they have the connection to all of these medical institutions. And Pennsylvania became a center. You got to go all the way back to Ben Franklin and all that stuff. And you see those pictures of them doing experiments and surgeons and all this stuff coming out of UPenn and all that. They kept that and remained a center. This is Thomas Jefferson Medical School. This hospital, that's Jefferson right there. That hospital, that's what that is. See, Jefferson Health. So when you do is another game to play is in Philly, you're gonna see the name Kimmel a lot of places. Look at the people who are funding these buildings and these projects, because that's another clue of understanding where the money is. Because you're gonna see repeat of same names like Kimmel. There's a Kimmel Center back on Broad and all that other stuff. And you can start to see the relations of where the money is and who did what. Another way for if you want your reparative justice to just look around when you go outside and put names to people, because these things go back generations. They got names on everything. That's not new money. As rarely is it, the dude who made his bread off the internet. No, that's old money. That's blue blood money, as they call it. Right? So we're still on our walk through Philly. And this has a purpose. We're not just walking randomly. Those who know, I'm walking a distance. And thanks for tuning in. I hope this is helpful, just looking at your city and where you at. So you just do that on your daily excursions. So my reconnection goes in and out, whatever, I don't know why. But so if it does, I'm not gonna go unlive. I know that's not a word. I'll just wait for it to reconnect. But talk amongst yourselves if that happens. But anyway, don't forget to charge your phone and get on a free Wi-Fi in the city. Yes, they don't have it this far though. I don't think. Go to 57 and Market. Well, I don't want to go all the way to 52nd and Market. That's all. Come on, man. I travel state to state, y'all. Dolo. So hopefully y'all don't come and beat me up. I'm Roll Dolo. Yeah, right, if y'all think that. Here you go. So we're here. Another thing. See? What happens here? First Republican National Convention. What happens? Formed 1854, the Republican Party. What did it do, y'all? Before you turn up your nose, what does it tell you on the sign that the Republican Party did? Oppose the extension of slavery. This is why black folks were Republican. This is why they had the Lincoln pictures everywhere. Because the Republican Party was started to oppose. There's a key word in that. Like people like to say they were abolitionists and all that. It opposes the extension of slavery. That's the key word that you have to remember. Yeah, Octavius Cato, Frederick Douglass, most of the people you think of in history from back in the day, they was Republicans. Harriet Tubman, likely Republican if she voted. all that type of stuff. Because of this, the extension, a history, they like to muddle it and act like in the beginning the Republicans are a part of the ICP don't come out till Friday though. But come on, George, you throw me off. So the extension of slavery is what they oppose, not the abolition. They could care less. This is why Lincoln could care less. He just wanted the solidarity of the Union. So this is why black folks are Republican. This is why the Union League was Republican, right? All these signs are important to look at. They tell you and put the story together. This is why. Right in the title. Oh, we wasn't never no Republicans. Yes, we were. And that's why. And that's what was the primary focus of the establishment of the Republican Party. Crazy to think about nowadays and what we know as Republicans, but that's a fact. Yes, Octavius Cato needs his own movie. He was, honestly, y'all, ill with it. Gangster. And it's one of those things where you look at the life, and if I'm not mistaken, he dies at 34. You know, so a lot of these people, even when we look back and we think about it, they're dying before 40. Before 40 years old, they do more than most of us do in our lifetime. Because they were activists. In their own ways, they lived it. And so, you know, we look at Malcolm, Martin, Cato. Some of y'all want to throw Pac and Nipsey in there. You can, whatever floats your boat. Before 40, is what I'm saying. And they should be motivation to us, for those who feel like, you know, we got some catching up to do. So Philadelphia was set up and planned, and it was built on a grid with 4 squares surrounding Center City. Where we just came from was Center City. Yeah, I mean Old City. And the other one close by there. Okay, so we're at one of the squares now. And this square, as you can see, it's the square, is Washington Square. Right? And so we're on the side of the town where from the 1600s, this is where the side of town where the black folks live, for all those who are curious. South Street is over there, which we might go toward, but this is where it is. And this is where the keyword Africans came to and had their parties in many cases, with playing with the different African nations here. This is where they would bump into all the signers of the Declaration of Independence and all those things that you cherish. The black folks that I'm about to show you on this trip knew them, and this needs to be understood. We knew exactly what was going on, what was being written in those documents that found this country and everything. We lived amongst them. We gotta understand that. You weren't in some capsule somewhere, not understanding what was going on in the world. You had different ways that you could have an impact, obviously due to our condition, but you was well aware. You was not an ignoramus. You knew who George Washington was. You knew who all these people were. So this was where the Africans were. This is where they came and they partied in Washington Square. And this is, as well, listen, an African burial ground. Yeah, right, and all that, right? This is an African burial ground as well, in Washington Square in Philadelphia, and I'm gonna show you how all these things are close to each other. Show the flag. Good one. Good one. Who said that? Philadelphia flag should be in this part. See, Washington Square down there is George Washington. Damn, they got the old flag. I gotta stay here from, see, now y'all distract me because I can stand and look at flags forever. So, because these are all the clues, this is what I'm telling you. So this is one of the old Philly flags right there. You see the Swedish up top, I don't know because of the light, it's blue and white with the yellow. Sweden. I wish I could pull a flag out, but they'd probably shoot me on sight if I tried. But y'all see the pattern. These are old Philly flags of the blue and white and the yellow. And you look up Sweden and you see it. There's obviously the influence of the British. Sorry for the distracting light. But yeah, this is a good one. I gotta come back here and then I'll write out all of these. I'll do, sorry about the finger. I'll show all the examples of these flags that you're looking at. So I'll do that in another one. Anyway, this is the African burial ground. This is Washington Square. This is one of the squares that was built set up when they built Philadelphia by William Penn. At the center is where we came from. That's why they call it Center City. It was City Hall. And we're on the side of town where the Africans live. And I told you that this is also an African burial ground. So here's your primary. Those are them. This is one of those pictures that you'll find in the library company where we went to. And okay, here's our primary. What does it say? Philadelphia supported a thriving African-American community that celebrated its rich heritage where? In festivities in Washington Square. Right? Here's your primary. Right? Until the 19th century, this was often, I'm gonna read it, so maybe you see the sun glare, but I'm gonna read it. This was often a sorrowful place. Many people knew it was a potter's field, a public burial place for all walked over. A lonely Acadian refugee found eternal rest here, along with epidemic victims, Catholics, and African Americans. Only free and enslaved African Americans brought a measure of mirth to this square, which, according to oral tradition, they called, let me get it so you can see it. What they call this place? What they call this place? Congo Square. Washington Square was named what? In the middle of Philadelphia. I'm gonna show you how close we are to everything. Congo Square. One 19th century historian recorded during fairs and holidays, perhaps as many as 1,000 black Philadelphians came here to dance after the manner, wait, look y'all, after, let me make sure we're in the right place so you see it. Where is it? Congo Square. After the manner of their several nations in Africa. So they knew who they were and they knew their different nations and they came here to dance in their national, so you knew who the Ghanaians were and the Igbo. Why? After the manner of their several nations in Africa. Speaking and singing, let's get it so you can see it, in their native dialects over the sleeping dust below. He also, what do you also say? Wrote of those from Guinea, a term once used to encompass several African areas, going to the graves of their friends early in the morning, and there leaving them victuals and Malik, would they leave them? Victuals and rum. Let me pause that right there for Malik. See what the Africans were doing? See how that kept right there? You know what the victuals and rums at the graveyards is? Boom. Did I prove my point? That Washington Square, we're gonna see how we close to everything, is an African burial ground. And this is named Congo Square in Philly? Huh? You don't have to take my word for it. You just saw it. Huh? Did I lie? What's up? So when I say I'm walking on the African burial ground, there shouldn't be no questions. I said African. Were there others buried here? Absolutely. Were the Africans buried here? Yes. We're not talking about the others, we're talking about the Africans. Right? This was where they came through and partied and had all the other stuff. eventually, and this became a square. And let me show you. Let me put it more. See, look, y'all. See, unless you know, true story ain't just running his mouth. Here's Center City. Where I like that way. El Luchador. Here's Center City. You see, y'all. And here are the squares that they built. And these are the parks. So Philadelphia was planned, Penn's plan. We were in Center City where we saw the signs of Philly Blunt and the Dutch Masters there at the center of the city. That's why this area is called Center City. And they built public squares around it because the reason that they build parks is for classes of different means to go and associate where the rich can be with the poor and the blah, blah, blah. That's why they have public parks. Whole nother story. But they built these public squares. Was it Rittenhouse, Washington, Logan, and what's the other one? I always forget the other one. But yeah, Rittenhouse, Washington, Logan, and it'll come to me. And the other one. And they're in the corners. That's why you're driving through Philly, it's much easier up and down, this way. Right? So, still in Philadelphia. So we got an African burial ground. Check this out. That's how the story gets deeper. Let me show you how we connected and we so crazy with it. All this is going on since the 1600s. The Africans are right here where we are. And you can see the distance that I'm walking for to get an idea, right? While that's going on, where I'm walking to is where you come on your school bus trips and with Miss Schokensberg and all those people, right? And they bring you to this area right here, right? And they show you these things on what stone. It's probably I don't know, Malik. When we really walk back, that's probably, I don't know, I would say soldiers maybe. I didn't even look at it. But I walked back because Brother Malik interrupted my story. I was trying to make it a nice story. But I'm taking questions while I'm here. So, he doesn't know either. Told you, yeah, soldiers. All right, there you go. So, soldiers. And who did it? We talked about this in the video yesterday. Who did it? Who started making the stuff? Daughters of the American Revolution. And then they start getting crazy with the stuff, and the Confederate ones come in. That's how you get the Confederate statues, but we're not gonna go there. So anyway, I'm still in the African burial ground in Congo Square. And I come out and I walk, 50 feet? And your school bus gets out here and you go, wow, and they begin to tell you all these stories and you tune out because you think it's only about a bunch of old white men and wigs and funny clothes doing stuff. And you think you ain't got nothing to do with the story. You think you don't know nothing about what's going on and you picking cotton somewhere. Let's show the distance once again. That's the park, just across the street. And yes, in Tavo, those who stick around, and I ain't even really get to the meat of the black person, no homo, to the black people stuff. I'm gonna show you, because I'm gonna show you that you have an intricate part of this history, and we need to stop acting like we didn't know what was going on. You come here with your class, and you learn about these things. These, Independence Hall. This is where your first Supreme Court is, and they doing all of the laws to found a country, and they're doing all of this stuff. This is where it is, right here. You was partying right across the street, and I'm gonna show you where you lived. How the hell you don't know what's going on? Does it make more sense now? These are the actual buildings, these people coming back and forth. I'm gonna show you where you lived amongst them and with them. How don't you know what's going on? This is important because you start to understand. I need to do Cash App. I'll set that up. Thank you though, I will. you start to understand why we use one word and why it stuck with us. Why we use, here's a key, here's a jewel for all those who's listening. This is why we use the word liberty to describe things. This is why you see the early Africans in the Stono Rebellion screaming liberty to the slaves. It's a fact. Go back and watch our Give the Drummer Some presentation. I'll show you the primaries. This is what they were yelling while drumming. This is why you had a black member of the Sons of Liberty. This is why you see liberty, the Liberty Bell, becoming a symbol of abolitionism. This is why, because this is where they were, and they were influencing these people by the same dialect that they use, because they wanted their liberty from Britain. And the Africans said, we want our liberty from you and Britain. And liberty stuck with us all the way down to the Stono Rebellion and other places, and we used the word liberty. So liberty we became the real sons of liberty, and it stuck with us, and that's what we was fighting for. You don't see the freedom word as much, you see liberty. And so when they go and they try to make a country for those free ones here now, still what it is, I told you before, what do they make? They make Liberia for the liberated ones. Liberty is still with you when you went back to Africa. Liberia. That's why. This is why liberty is everywhere. That was your calling card in words, because you were right here and you knew the language and you knew how they were doing it on these documents and all this stuff. And this is how you proved it. So, let's see where we were again. Let's do this. Oh, we ain't done yet. That's why I say if you stick around, you'll really get to see. This is just the warm-up. Those who know me, welcome, but I'm getting somewhere with this. So you can do this firsthand. So I don't want to hear no excuses. If you live in Nashville, if you live in Waco, wherever you are, hold your damn head up and look around, look at the streets and statues and monuments and building names and report back to me and tell me if I'm lying. Tell me if it don't help you put the pictures and the pieces together. Not yet, Malik. You think you're smart, but I'm not going there just yet. But I am going to go by there. You can put the pieces back together. Like I said, it's a game you play with your kids for free. You walk around anywhere you are and look at the street names and the stories and all that. And now you got a game with your kids that you're playing for free, and he ain't sitting there feeling like he just got to learn some, I want to learn about all this stuff. Nah, it's a game, because he'll remember. And then you always have what? Visual clues. And that's how we stick. So when that Alzheimer's and we get old, that's what hits us. We see those visual clues again. That's the Liberty Bell. Show your connection once again. So, let's see where we are again. This is right as Independence Center, and you see yourself, and you think you come down here, I don't want to see no George Washington and Thomas Jeffersons and all that. You think you don't got nothing to do with the damn story, right? You was picking cotton, singing songs. That's all you know. You ain't have nothing to do with it. So what is this? See the structure right here? Block away from the African burial ground. What is this? Let's go see. Let's go see. Yeah, y'all could try to pull up. Come on, bring it. I ain't no little nigga. Nah, let me stop. Uh-oh. Promoting the abolition of slavery. What? By all of this Independence Hall stuff? Uh-oh. A new form of government coming here, and in the midst of all of this, I tell you, if I feel like it, maybe I'll go inside the museum and really show y'all. We can break all that down. This has other meanings too. There you go. We don't know nothing about none of this, right? Right? So, what do we get? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. This was a part. Let's get into it. In March of 1793, Washington signed in. See? Now you want to overtalk me, see? You don't want to get to this part. Anyway, in March 1793, Washington signed the Fugitive Slave Act, which gave slave owners explicit authority to recover. This was the Fugitive Slave Act, 1793. Some agents even took advantage of this law to kidnap free people. So there were free people in 1793? Yes, there were, of African descent. And so what happens? We were just sitting around. Uh-oh. Let's read this carefully because he has a tavern in New York, Jamaican-born, Samuel Black Sam Francois, owner of the Francois Tavern, where in New York City, this is important in a second, I'll show you why, was so highly regarded for his hospitality and patriotism that President Washington hired him as steward. Francois often hosted Washington and his officers at the tavern. Despite his nickname, some believe him to have been white. So there's a argument that, but they hate him because he was mixed. But here's the story. That's where you get your Book of Negroes from. It happened in his tavern in New York City, in Francois Tavern, 1783. And that Book of Negroes is important because in there, Book of Negro was the people who ended up going to Sierra Leone. And that's how Sierra Leone gets his people, from those people in that Book of Negroes. But he was so important to George Washington. Before Washington, D.C. became the capital, it was in Philadelphia. That's where I'm standing. In the capital, in the president's home. And Francois came to Philadelphia with him and was as his primary baker, black man. So what happens with this is Washington thinks he's slick. They make stipulations in this law that you can't have him, I believe, for like 6 months or something like that. So he starts to send Africans out and then bring them back so he can get around the law with these type of things. So we can read the story here. Y'all go, who's the name for y'all that don't know? You should. Here's Oni Judge. She was one of George Washington. She was a bad chick. You can't really see it because of the reflection, but I want you to look up Oni Judge and you see who she was. What does it say? Oni escaped. Still a fugitive in her 70s, Ona Judge tells the story of her enslavement in the president's house and her escape to freedom in 1796 to New Hampshire, where she married Jan Staines and had 3 children. Oni Judge was a bad chick, y'all, so you need to read about it. She was enslaved by your first president, and she ran away. She started writing him letters in the newspaper, like saying, come and get me, all type of craziness. She was gangster. George Washington, your president's slave. Wasn't no Africans out here. She ran away. Here you go. Here you are again. Well, uh-oh. What's that word? Why is that important associated with you again? In the 1790s, slave owners escaped from the slave rebellion in Santa Domingue. What slave rebellion was that? Haiti. Where were those slave owners coming when Haiti was going crazy, y'all? Here's another piece of the puzzle. They were taking those Africans and running away to Philadelphia. Here you go at Abos and all that. In 1790s, Haitians, Africans were brought here. Do they count? I ain't gonna get into all that. I was just a little sidebar. Look, and so this is how Haitians get amongst the Philadelphia. And then the Haitians, we know of their African background, so that's how it gets here as well. Bringing enslaved Africans, yellow fever, and a suspicion that slavery might yield what? Somebody just said it, dreadful insurrections. Haiti had the whole colonies from the Caribbean to here shook, in their own words. So Africans lived here. And we can tell more of our story. Maybe you can see this a little bit better. So you come in, you bring your kids. Look, this is actually nice. This plays all year round, even when it's cold. I knew full well that the now your man right here. Okay, let's read. On December 29th, when President John Adams ordered a day of mourning throughout the nation for George Washington's death, Reverend Richard Allen, he's going to come up again, saw opportunity for the free. There were free Africans here in the 1790s. They told you it wasn't free to 1865. Get that out your head. Here you go. To expand the meaning of what? The meaning of what? There's your word. He called on Americans to honor the first president, blah, blah, and the free. See, they played the game smart.
Unbiased by the popular
opinion. But come over here and y'all get some more. I'm not gonna go through all of it. Bring your behind here, and they tell you here's your slave trade. Here's your panel right here of your slave trade that you want to know. Okay. Here's your important parts right here. I showed this picture and I give the drummer some presentation. See the drummers? See the banjo or banjar? See the jumping, the broom for the two people about to get married? See the influence of the region that they were taken from was Muslim? See the clues? They were Muslim people. Drums, banjo, gourd, jumping the broom for these people about to get married. See how you break down? You've seen this picture a million times. You see the clues in it? That's what's going on. In 1790, there were 59,000 free black folks in America. 1790. 10 years later, there are 108,000, or 2% of the black population. Right? Here goes your enslaved before the Abolition Act. That's how many was here. And you don't think it's a lot, but you have to consider that the population of Philadelphia isn't that huge yet as well, the white population either. And so they have another section which is interesting. And I don't know if I can get the whole thing, but this begins to show you. Here goes your West African connection right here. See what the symbols that they got showing you? See all your West African words and everything? You see the symbols? This is the people that they brought here. This is where they came from. They came from West Africa. And this was the things that, especially in the Khan tradition, they have these Sankofa symbols all around. So they use these when they, can't really see it, to honor you and show where you came from and your connection to all of it, because you were West African people who was brought here. You can see this side better. Who were brought here. Right next to, where is it? Right in there where the people were walking is the Liberty Bell. Huh? Okay. There we go. How did people ask how they become free? If you come here, they'll tell you the story. How they become free. And then you have what went on during that yellow fever epidemic, and why in that graveyard, why it was also a graveyard, because it was yellow fever epidemic. And you have their own words of telling them. AJ stands for Absalom Jones, and this is from Richard Allen. You can find this online for free, and also at the library company. And you see that these are not the words of white men that you keep hollering about. AJ is this man, Absalom Jones. RA is this man, Richard Allen, and they write this along with other writings that they write to tell you what was going on in those times. But this was about that yellow fever epidemic. That's how they made it come up. But you ask how they get free. Here's the story. Here's it is. Well, it's the key words you see. Never fought back. Here's your resistance. Running away is a resistance. Fighting is a resistance. Huh? What you talking about? Was no slavery in the North? Enslaved in Philadelphia. What are you talking about? Yes, there was. And we fought and did everything and scared these people, but they had the Institute graduate ask me, you freed yourself. I got the story twisted. You was just waiting around on some Quakers to free you. Really? All right. So, that's all your buildings right there. Negroes living right over here, working with, for, and enslaved by George Washington, as well as free. They writing all your constitutions and all that fly stuff you like to sing about right across the street. You getting buried and partying a block and a half away since the 1700s, and you don't know what's going on? Oh, somebody said the Jew Museum. Let me just throw that because I want to show you something. But you don't know what's going on, right? It's Christopher Shields. Look up Christopher Shields, as a matter of fact. When you go and you see George Washington at his deathbed, I'm going to give you a secret. Go look in the corner. You'll see a black man in an orange jacket. Any one of those pictures that you see at George Washington's bed. His name was Christopher Shields. Attendant to George Washington. Here go the names. You want some names? Only Judge is one of them we saw her. Got a black man at George Washington's deathbed. Should have poisoned him? Maybe, maybe not. But you ain't know what's going on? Got his name etched in here like it say, Hey Rule or Ra O Neff or whatever, the same thing. We got our memories right here. We don't know. We walk by thinking, oh, Christopher Shields must be some white dude who was, no. That's your people. Only Judge right there. Told you, look her up. Bad chick. Etched in stone. But you only give it to Egypt and all that, right? You only do that. We don't think we got it right here. Don't worry about it. It's not a golden, oh, the Liberty Bell, yes, it's in there. But I'm gonna show you another one. By the way, I'm not walking down there, but where am I? 2 blocks away, maybe, oh, down this way is the African American Museum. Maybe I'll go past there later. Wow, 20-something people still in there? Yeah. Y'all smart, because you know I ain't even get to the good stuff yet. So when your kids come down here to the Constitution Center and Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, tell them pay attention, because now you can point out your people in the story. So you learn about George Washington so you can learn about Only Judge. You can learn about Christopher Shields. You can learn about Richard Allen. That's why you learn about Jefferson and him. And then the kid sees themselves. And the kid sees themselves out of chains, not on equal footing all the way, but free in many instances and doing their thing. That's more empowering than, you know, we all falling asleep because it got some plantation and all that. So I told y'all about symbolism. Go back to our previous videos, and I did one on the Liberty cap. Once again, that word is liberty. That's why it's associated with you, and that's why it is on your Haitian coat of arms as well as many others, and that is a Liberty cap right there on this statue. I'm not breaking down all the symbols, but there's meaning to everything. You see that cap? That's the same cap. That's the Liberty cap. That cap is associated with you as well. Anything, most symbols to do with liberty. Right there, bam. On the top of the head. That's why, yeah, got the Jesus hand. I know you Illuminati heads, you get busy. Yeah, they got the hand that certain way for a reason and a whole bit. But what's interesting, as I thought about it, speaking of all that, check this out. Religious liberty dedicated to the people of the United States by the order of B'nai B'rith, Israelites of America. Why they don't never come proselytized by the Israelites of America sign right here? I never see them over here. And the Philly has, tell me if I'm lying, you ain't never seen no Hebrew Israelites over here. And this is the foundation of the shaitan that they talk about. Why they ain't never over here doing that? Huh? Tell me if I'm lying, people from Philly. You won't never see them over here. Why they ain't right here talking about, no, we the real Israelites. You know why? Because this is the American Jewish Museum. And you play that over here if you want, and all the Philly heads can testify, they're gonna knock your head off. Huh? Look. Huh? So also, what I want to tell you is you gotta read stuff again. Maybe we can go around this way and come around about. No. So you read stuff again, you know the Jew has a connection to the financials and all that stuff eventually, and that becomes a center. It's not coincidence about things, although Wells Fargo has an influence everywhere, but you start to see a lot of financial buildings around that as well. But I'm not gonna get too deep with that one right now. So let's continue our Philly tour. Hopefully when your kid comes now, you give them some homework to do. Come back and bring me all the black people that you find at your trip to Philadelphia and your capital. And that stuff. And they can't even don't exist because you just saw it for yourself. Where's lunch? I don't know. Why don't y'all give me a donation, I'll get some lunch. It's hard out here for a pimp. I should tell these kids, scared to die. Black people was here first. So anyway, they come here, they don't know the story. You can know the story, you can teach them. Because they're gonna think that you was on a plantation too, doing something. And you pull out people to show them that you was right here doing your fizzing. Right? Food ain't cheap over here, you crazy? Walk in a straight line now. Wow, jeez, now I gotta walk in a... Listen, man, I'm trying my best, people. So anyway, there go your buildings. There goes your street name, Chestnut again. When we talked about those, we looked at those. And then we're gonna do some more walking. So all this was nice. I guess the question is, why you doing all this white people stuff? Because I know people like to say, oh, let me do one thing first. Let me deviate for a second. Show y'all something. So, you got the signers of the Declaration of Independence. You living all around here. You don't know what's going on. That's gonna be my recurring theme. Stop thinking you didn't know what was going on. You knew exactly what was going on. And that's why you manipulated the system as best you could and try to get some freedom out the deal. What happened? I'm getting trounced in the thing? So, like I tell you, this is financial district. When you look at the building and you look at these old buildings, look. Bank. You see? Look. Bank. You see? Bank. Why? Because this was the second bank that was done. Going all the way back to the 17th. And so these buildings that you see, these come later. These aren't the original ones. This is during that Beaux Arts period. But they'll tell you it's based on, damn, I only got 20% left. Uh-oh. I don't know how we're gonna do this. We might have to get to the black people quick. I only got 20% left. All right, so let me get to the black people part real quick, see if I can do that before my phone dies. I left my chronic all the way on the other side of the jump off. Who makes the best cheesesteaks? I don't even eat beef, so I'm the wrong person to ask. Ain't it Geno's? Or what's the other one over by South Street? Go get a battery pack. Negroes or something else. Y'all better hope this 20% lasts so I can show you the Negroes you're looking for. So if my phone dies, Keep it real, America. I think I can make it to the black people section. So anyway, come to Philadelphia, you get to learn, you see. This is where your Supreme Court is, the Independence Hall, where they sign these things, where they do legislation. Look at the daggone signs, and you'll see it. Go charge it at City Hall for me. Y'all got a lot of instructions. Why don't you Philly people come and help me charge out? Oh, y'all telling me where to go? It's a setup. Trying to get me knocked off in the city of brotherly love. I know what's going on. Cobblestone streets. Hold up. What I haven't found, people keep telling me I'll be going to some whack ones. Where is the banging fish spot, man? I've been out here 1,000 times and people tell me go to the Muslim balls and, man. Vegan cheesesteaks. Now, I don't hug the tree that hard. I eat like a chicken cheesesteak. Bilal's? Where's Bilal's? You think all these bearded Sunnis out here, they had a banging fish spots? Paprika, Germantown Avenue. Y'all better hope wait, can I check how much battery I got? Oh, y'all better hope this phone lasts. Say. Anyway, Bilal 2 in West Philly. Man, I gotta go all the way to West. Y'all know where I'm at, man. Ain't nowhere in West. Why I gotta go all the way over there? Where in the hood, George? How far, man? I gotta go all the way over by Temple. Yo, son, for real? I love it over by Temple. It feel like Brownsville. I can't front, y'all. It's scary. I love that. That part of Philly is for real. Yeah, I know it ain't nowhere downtown. Broad and South? Yeah, right. Broad and South ain't no vegan. Is it? Oh, it's a Jamaican joint on South over here. Maybe I'll go there. Nah, that Jamaican joint is kind of nasty over there on South. Hopefully that ain't none of y'all spots, but that one over here is nasty, yo. Anywho, come on, y'all. We gotta get back to what I'm trying to eat. I don't know, George. I'm just out here. I don't want nothing big, you know. Just something. I gotta go charge my phone. Maybe I'll go back live. I gotta go to the hood to show y'all I ain't scared to go to the hood. This is one of them type of videos too. I love black people, yo. I go anywhere. Yeah, I did want some fish, but you know, whatever, man. I just wanted a little fish sandwich. So, I'm trying to get y'all to the black people section before my phone dies. I think I should be good for, just to show y'all where it's at. So y'all, I done showed it in the previous videos, but y'all can come find it on your own when you come to Philly. So now you get a chance to know the general area. We don't have a gang issue. I ain't know. I'm too old for all that stuff. I just like the people. I like that part over there, yo. What's the part where Hank Gathers used to live? I think he got it's a Y over there. Yo, woo! I feel like Brownsville too. That whole strip. I forget the name of the strip. So anyway, the black people lived in this area, y'all. Let me get to this real quick. And yes, like Malik mentioned, the footprint where we gathered around was the black church. Let me give you a little brief history anyway. So we lived in houses like this in Philly. So we lived amongst the black people. We did not live on separate plantations. But where we lived is here. And we lived in the cellars of these places. So they would have their homes and we would live down there. So what tends to happen is when that yellow fever epidemic breaks out, we get hit hard because we don't have the ventilation or anything in these type of places where we live. And so that's why you have the cellars. We lived down here, worked in their homes, lived in the cellars. That's how it worked. And that's how we lived amongst them, because there's no real plantation system in Philadelphia. It's more in Delaware. But when we were enslaved amongst them, we lived in their homes and we lived close to them. So in these places, you see why they wanted a path to gradual emancipation, because the Haitians did that. And I have these Negroes living, you know, in those cellars right next to me. If they decide to go crazy, look how close they are to us. And this was one of the main reasons that you see amongst the Quakers starting to do that. It wasn't just because they wanted to free you because it was wrong. They were scared you was going to Haiti them. And much more because before Haiti, you have a number of revolts that take place in the Caribbean and here. 1712, you have one in New York that scares the hell out of them for 30, 40 years. Barbados, you have them. Jamaica, you have them. You know? So hopefully my battery lasts this next 3 blocks. And I can show y'all this real quick. I said 20%, it should come up at 10%, so I don't know. So anyway, that's where y'all lived, y'all. That's in here, in the cellars. That's how it works. They lived there, you lived there until you could get free, and then you go and buy your homes. And in this area is where you start getting those who, you know, got free and got their bread up. And this became the black section based around the AME Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. This was a place where you see runaway ads and people running north. One of the places they came was around here. He said, be careful in Little Africa. Little girl. I will act like I don't speak another language in a second, yo. I could get real fun. No English, boss. I want fine train. I want anything. Yo, so anyway, here you go. Let me show y'all Francis Johnson real quick. Google him, The Sun's in the Way. He's another important black figure. You see, he's a trumpeter, he has a lot of songs. He was very important. Here's a sign, black man, right here. Google him. Francis Johnson. You'll see pictures of him, old bit. He's very, very important. Black folks, this is where we live. Okay. So, this is the center. And we've done this before. So I'm gonna see if I can run through it with no sleight of hand. Nah, man. They need to get the better Jamaicans. Every Jamaican spot I've been to down here is suspect. They must have sent all the like off-brand Jamaicans to Philly. So anyway, real quick, here it is. Mother was named Mother for a reason, because it was the Mother Church. That tradition came from West Africa. This is the African Methodist Episcopal Church, founded by Richard Allen, and you can see the years. It was an old blacksmith shop that they took and that they moved. Blacksmith shop was important for a reason, and I'll show you. Richard Allen is actually buried in here as well. You can see that this is done in 1787. They told you weren't free to 1865, yet you have a church established 100 years before that. Who lied to who? As you can see, the African Methodist Episcopal Church occupied this same site continuously since its founding, in its earliest years, enjoyed the active financial and normal support of Dr. Benjamin Rush. Yes, he was a black man. White man. But here's the key. Dr. Benjamin Rush was what? A signer of the Declaration of Independence. I told y'all back there to stop acting like we don't know who these people are and there's no connection to us. We know exactly what's going on because right there we parted. Right here was our center, and a couple blocks down was where they were signing the damn thing. He was a backer of this. We don't know what's going on in the language in the Declaration of Independence when he supported this. We knew him, George Washington, and everybody else. Do I prove my point? And we used liberty in that language because we knew what was going on in this document. So we know who they are. Stop acting like you don't know Thomas Jefferson and all. You was walking by them down the street right here. You was going to your African party. Oh, I got 10%. 10%. What you was doing right there. Get it? Doing a much abbreviated version because I got 10%, but stop saying that. You knew what was going on in the world. We need to get back to just understanding how they did us dirty. 10% real quick. 10%, so let me do this. We did this a million times by Free African Side. This is important because it comes up before the church. Because we were arguing over which faith it was, right? So we did it this way. Don't worry about which faith. Let's do it for the people and to provide leadership for them. So what that leads to is this. The establishment of the Mother AME Church right here. I'll tell you the signs, right? Let me get it hot for you. I'm nice with this, y'all. You never noticed the Richard Allen Avenue sign. None of y'all was right there. That right there, too, is another African burial ground. So when you look at the AME symbol, I told you it came from an old blacksmith shop and he did blacksmith work. That's why the anvil is at the center of it. Statue of Richard Allen, who was buried here. This church, 1787. We had that. That land right there is the most owned black real estate in North America. This right here. When was the land purchased? 1791. Land purchased October 10th, 1791. This is the longest owned black property in all of America. Whole lot. I probably got 8%. Can I go? I want some more real quick. Right here, Lombard Street. I'm about to tell you that riot and all that stuff that took place. For what? They were celebrating Jamaican emancipation. You talking about some ADOs? We here in this town celebrating Jamaican emancipation. You talking about? That's what we was doing. Huh? Together. For the abolition of slavery there. Ain't no connection, we different? You must be crazy. Let me go to the last one real quick while I got this. Oh, they took it down? I probably got 7%. Now I'm all the way on the other side of town with no charge phone. George Macon gonna call the big guys to come beat me up and I ain't got no signal in the world. It's hard being a street historian, y'all. I need to get my damn Patreon in order. So anyway, let me end this real quick. The boys just sell out and the Tom and all this other stuff, right? The boys came and sat and lived in the middle of the hood. In the middle of the hood. So he could study and understand how he was creating organizations. That's how I'm gonna end this. Because the key to us is creating organizations and how we could do it. Because he found out we have been creating organizations here since the 1700s. And the free black population here was the gold standard for how we created and built. And so this is important. So he came here to do his great work, which we talking about souls of black folk. The great work is Philadelphia Negro, because it shows you how we organize and associate. It shows you the difficulties that came along with it. Our successes and failures. It shows you the name of the organizations and what we did, how we serviced the community, right? How he serviced the community and what we did, how we built the church, how we built associations for the kids, how we built schools, how we built all those things. This is what he did. That's why. So call him what you want, but he came to the hood to live and try to find out the best way because he knew organization and association was the key for us. We don't have them to point to today. We're arguing over organizations and associations from his era. Because what they do through COINTELPRO and others, took away our ability to organize. Organizations got us singing as Africans in a damn graveyard, 1700, and then founding the church, and then building all these other societies in the midst of all of that craziness. And we can't point to organizations that we had to struggle with it. What happened? Ain't that the key? So say what you want to have your opinions, and I'm not saying he did everything right, but all this picking superheroes like we do with our people is ridiculous. You better learn what these people actually did. Say what you want. That man lived right here. See this big ass mural? Amongst these people. To find out how we can keep building those organizations and associations. Get what you want. Say what you want. Did he do everything right? Hell no. Did anybody know? But you're quick to, because he's light-skinned and this and that and all this, you don't know the work he did. Guarantee you. Did he have his problems? Hell yeah. Who don't? So did Elijah, so did Malcolm, so whatever. They was humans, man. It's a little bit about Philadelphia and how we just walked around and did all this. I ain't pull out a book, nothing. I showed you and hit you with primaries that you can see. So take your behind out to Camden or South Beach and wherever you are and realize that to some degree or another, there was an African or a black president there. It's all depending on the area or whatever, but I can guarantee you it's there, even if you're sitting in Kansas or you're sitting in Utah. I guarantee you, if you look for it. So I'm gonna go on my little op-ed until my phone dies, because I know I ain't got enough to make it right now. Why you ain't go to Henry Mittenhouse? See? That's love, my people. Yeah, for real, y'all, this is the burial ground too, because it was connected to the church, and so they still arguing over this park and should they do something with it. AME Church, also the longest owned black property in America. Right here in Philadelphia. I don't know if the cool kids say it like that no more. You know? So, I saw somebody say it, and I bet not hear it again. The only way you know Richard Allen was the projects? No, that should start our journey. That's another thing before my phone died. Look at the name of your projects and them people. That's a good start. Imagine if everybody who lived in Richard Allen projects at the time knew a little bit about him. We don't. We didn't. James Weldon Johnson was another one down here. He wrote the Black National Anthem. Did the people who lived in James Weldon Johnson know that? Maybe not. Maybe. Another clue, the places that we live and the project names that we got. It ain't about knowing as much as me, it's about each one teach one. I share with you what I know, you share what you know. That's how this game goes. Y'all ain't get that yet? There ain't no race. I just happen to be nerded out before a lot of y'all, so what? Learn from people every day. But yeah, it's a challenge to all my Philly heads. George Macon, I want to see you on the street doing this now. Do this in your hood. Show us the history of your hood from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. You ain't got to go all the way back to 16 slavery 9. Y'all like that one? You could do it from the 50s, 60s. I ain't go by the Father Divine Hotel and all that stuff over there. You could do that. Father Divine right here. Dig at I don't know, where did I see it? I saw a Morris Science Temple over by UPenn, but I don't know if that's just a new one or they've been there for a long time. So maybe when the phone charges, I'll come back and go live again. Yeah, the Father Divine Hotel is still there. Still got the signs up and everything. Monica, I didn't know. You didn't hit me. I saw y'all sitting at the restaurant. Sean talking about y'all went to Junior's. I was around. Me and Alan ended up going down and did the Peter Stuyvesant. Matter of fact, let's wrap this up. My phone's gonna die. This is awesome. Philly Blunt, Dutch Master. We get the connection now when you look at it. Philly tobacco, Dutch tobacco. The Dutch ruled Philadelphia and New York. Peter Stuyvesant, the whole bit. You see how that worked? So when you go to the bodega, you got some history. For your potheads, you got history. For your friends, you got it right in front of you, losing those two things. Now you can put together so much more. No, I'm not getting to the white owl and all that. I gotta find a way to weave it in story. Y'all want me to take the fronto from you too? Not yet. Not yet. So what I ask y'all is to leave comments as well. We do these things and nobody leave comments. I don't know if you learn something. I know the disputers are coming. There's a million people that's gonna tell me why I ain't show the Lenape in this video or something like that, but comments are, you know, a form of interaction. Let me know what y'all, if y'all want to see more or see different, or you have a dispute about something. I ain't got no problem with a dispute. Just don't, you know, bring your info along with you. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, y'all think I'm a little nigga if you want. You see that? Oh, you can't see it no more. Got 911 on speed dial. I ain't playing with you niggas. I'm telling. I'm trying to hurt my foot. I done got my feet bad out here. I know I'm too old to be walking around like this. Hey, yo, let me tell y'all something that's corny, too. Philly people say water ice. That's whack, dog. We say ices. I was down here, Dice Row was nice. Say water ice. I'm sorry, I love Philly to death. That's half retarded, though. Water ice? It's called an icy. Knock it off. Water ice. Come on, man. Word up. Water ice. It's an icy, that's what it is. You heard what I said, Dice Roll was nice. Go ahead, Malik, everybody ain't conscious, doing no conscious rap all the time. God, with all that. Keep trying to tell you, I like my rap music, ignorant, sorry. Yes, thank you, it's called an icy. Yeah, Combs is official, you don't know what he's talking about. Malik wants somebody to talk about the planets and kumbaya. Sometimes people just gotta get beat up in a rap song, Malik, deal with it. So, yeah, learn about your neighborhoods. It's not limited. I was just in New York the other day. Now I'm in Philly. Matter of fact, if y'all really want the true story and to go around the country, you know, let me know and we could set up something to make that happen. I can do this around the country if you like. That's what, you know, interested in. Yeah, do this where you at. Don't limit this to just Philly and New York and what you see on the internet. Danny, I could have took you to get a water ice Philly style. I'll go to that spot. Matter of fact, it's right over here on South Street. There's one. Mess around and have a sugar fit out here as hot as it is too. Eating some damn, that stuff be straight syrup. Water ice. George, you cock diesel ass walking around saying water ice. You gonna look crazy as hell. It's an icy, dude. Let me go get a water ice. Knock it off. And George, another thing, man, I'm so sick of seeing y'all little wilt change.
Season 2, Workspaces and People of Amsterdam. We're meeting with Rashid, who is the former head of design of WeWork, who was...
Good day, and welcome back to the MBK channel for all those who are joining and who may join at a later time. This is just a little build and discussion on a few things. And one of them is 420, which we know just passed. And 420, excuse me, and the Easter holiday, as well as some other things we're going to discuss and just see, just take a little trip and see how we do at MBK. I guess people understand our format by now. Hopefully they do, and using what's around you to get a better understanding of history and just, stop, look, and really learning at the things we see. So here's this little brief way we can do this, and you'll remember some of these things. Peace to everybody who's joining, and I hope you get a little bit from this and just see how certain things connect and to put the pieces back together. This is building on something, a previous video that me and brother Rob Bourne did, and we were in Lower Manhattan, and we were discussing Peter Stuyvesant and the impact of the Africans who were here in New York City under the Dutch. So let me just do this. So yeah, we just had 420, and as a lot of folks know, it is considered the weed or marijuana day of celebration, if you will. It's become that. And I'm from Brooklyn. And one of the things that's was associated with Brooklyn and marijuana was the Dutch master. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start on 420 and the Dutch masters and see where we might end up. So I'll present my screen to everyone so we could take this journey. I think my screen is showing. Yes? Okay, there it goes. All right. Everyone has seen, well, many people who've gone to probably any bodega at this point or have smoked marijuana have seen this box right here or seen this particular logo. This logo is from the Dutch masters. And what came in this box was Dutch master cigars. Everybody playing along at home can do this to see that this isn't any sleight of hand tricks, which you may see. So these are the Dutch masters. And like I say, we can use everything around us as ways to tell a story and understand what the heck is going on, right? So bear with me, Centavo. You'll enjoy this. These are the Dutch masters. We never sat and asked, well, what the heck is this? It was just some random thing. This has a historical meaning and reference to it. So we're just going to take a look. You see this picture? So no sleight of hand tricks. This is the actual Dutch master's box for the Dutch master's cigar or cigars or tobacco. And remember that. So that same picture, no sleight of hand, this same picture with the background taken out is a historical picture. And if we go and look of what this historical picture is of these guys dressed like this with these particular outfits on, we will see, all those playing along will look, the name of that picture is called the Syndics of the Drapers Guild. And in our previous videos, I hope you take a look where we discussed the guild system and what comes out of that and how you have your trades and how they divided labor and they train certain people in these guilds and these crafts. And one of those crafts, y'all, was the Freemasons. And for other reasons I won't get into right now, that became the one that people most associate nowadays with these craft guilds. But there were numerous craft guilds per trade because this is how skills were handed down, and the system especially came up during the Middle Ages. So one of these guilds under this guild system was the Drapers Guild, and that's what the Dutch master picture is. So why is this important? We'll read, I said Eastern, people may wonder why I'm doing Eastern there. Let's read just a little bit. Says sampling officials, also called syndics of the Drapers Guild. It's a 1662 oil painting by Rembrandt. Everybody should study, not study, but know who Rembrandt is to get the reference. All right, let's go. It has been described as his last great collective portrait. The men, with the exception of Bell, who was an attendant, as indicated by his callet, or the hat right here in the back, are drapers who were elected to assess the quality of cloth that weavers offered for sale to members of their guild. Their 1-year term in office began. Remember, I threw in Easter and wonder why? Their 1-year office began on Good Friday. There's a little connection for the potheads who could be like, ooh, yeah, there you go. Anyway, and they were expected to conduct their inspections twice weekly. So these are the guilds and these are the systems that are coming into play. And they come and they take the, whether it's raw materials and manufacturing or gold or tin, there's guilds for everything. What you're going to get into, I just want you to know that that's what that picture is. So these guilds also sponsor journeys and expeditions and so forth and so on. These guilds and these members become responsible for enslavement and the many of the companies that come out of it. These guilds are the ones that are maybe in some instances putting up the money to sponsor these journeys, expeditions, pirating ventures, or whatever, to get the natural resources for their particular industry. So what are these ships going out for? We know they had silver, gold, and all of these particular products. So this is the guild. Now we said we're going to talk about Harlem too. We see the 420 connection. Now you know who the Dutch masters are. It's a guild. It's a Rembrandt picture. They have these guilds. You can take it from there. We're not going to go too heavy on that. Then you can read about what the guilds do. All right. This same picture, also done by Rembrandt, I believe. No, this is from Debray. This is another one. It's called, the reason I'm showing you is the same type of picture. These are the governors of the Harlem Guild. Everybody can see where the mouse is moving. The Harlem Guild of St. Luke. I want you to remember that. This is in Netherlands. And in 1675, they have something called the Harlem Guild. Where we heard the name Harlem before? Was there a Harlem? Actually, there was, but do we know it from New York? Yeah, we do. Were the Dutch in New York? Yes, they were. Did they have companies who ran New York City? Yes, they did. The name of it was the Dutch West India Company. Did they go around the world to get these materials and spices? Yes, we know. Because the Dutch East India Company did it. This is why they have a footprint in Asia and India and those places. And the Dutch West India Company did it because they had a footprint in the Americas as well. And we mentioned that the Dutch masters was a tobacco, one of the first, and actually the first industry, and why they exploited, why they exploited New York City in particular. People don't know. After the beaver, it was tobacco. This is another connection to your Dutch masters and what they were doing in New York in particular, but wherever the Dutch or the people from Holland, the Netherlands, Amsterdam were. They exploited tobacco. So in New York, New Amsterdam is what it was called. They had tobacco. In downtown Manhattan, on the Boweries, this is why you have Bowery Street, or farm in Dutch, were tobacco farms. Okay, so there's another connection. They had these in Brazil and Suriname and other places as well. All right, now, who do you think worked on those tobacco farms? Africans. Another connection to the Dutch masters, tobacco, and this when you're looking at the blunts. Then you know about the Africans coming to play in this because the Africans were working on those tobacco plantations in New York City. I know it's crazy to believe, but this is what they were doing. And so we have Harlem Guild and their connection. We have the Drapers Guild. We understand a little bit of connection to that. We did a video and presentation that I want to go through. I won't show the whole thing, but I'll skim through it. But I want to get people to get the gist of it. So I'll stop talking briefly. So now you can see it once again and understand how all of these things meld together just from looking at a Dutch master box. And you could see your history, understand your history, and find your way to break it down using all the stuff that's around you to tell a story, because it has a connection. So I'm just going to play a presentation that we did, and we'll skim through it, and hopefully this gets a little bit clearer, this connection to Dutch, the Africans, New York, and Caribbean, and the whole bit. So stories that have been missing from history. So yes, it will be done each state. So I'm going to be off and on looking at the chat, but I'll have my brothers look at the chat. This particular prove it process begin. First we'll start with a man named John Rodriguez. Now, I will make this claim and then proceed to prove it. John Rodriguez was an international weapons dealer, the first non-native resident of New York City, and he was a black rascal. Let's take a further look to see what I mean and how. Once you hear these things and I present the evidence and you see they are backed up with fact and are validated, you too should feel comfortable making a statement and future statements in this particular broadcast just like this. May seem outrageous, backed up with 100% fact. So, somebody go on mute. John Rodriguez was an explorer of African descent. He was born in Santo Domingo, which is the Dominican Republic. Somebody please go on mute. In 1613, he traveled with the Dutch ship from Dominican Republic to New York to participate in the beaver trade. That's right, the beaver trade, and beavers will be throughout this broadcast, so pay attention. This is the epic true story of exploration and independence. Juan Rodriguez, someone who was called a black rascal, is the soul of New York City. Now, what do I mean by that? This right here is the actual Dutch record from a court case explaining who Juan Rodriguez is. This is vital and important information because this is the primary document and actually the only source that we have on who Juan Rodriguez not only was, but what he did. Remember, I said, and stand by, international arms dealer and a black rascal and explorer. So we will begin to read. This is the exact translation of the Dutch document that we just saw. I will read the first part of this presentation. We will have some reading to get through, but I'll try to fly through it as fast as we can. Today, the 20th of August in the year of 1613, where's the little pointer thingy so you can see where my, here it is. Appear before me, etc., at the instance and request of Captain Adrian Block, citizen of the said city, yada, yada, yada. That is true that the deponents sailed to the last voyage. The said Mossel ship, Tejas Mossel was the captain of the ship, arrived in the river of New Nova, Virginia, which is the Hudson River. Finally, they declared that when the said Mossel sailed away from the river with his ship, this is the actual Dutch court case now, word for word, a mulatto born in Santo Domingo who arrived there with the ship of St. Mossel stayed ashore at the same place. They had given this mulatto 80 hatchets, some knives, a musket, and a sword saber. The said Tejas Mossel and his supercargo then themselves declared that this Spaniard had run away from the ship and gone ashore against their intent and will, and that they had given him the said goods in payment of his wages, and therefore had nothing more to do with him. Moreover, they testified, said that the crew of the plaintiff ought to have shot him, seeing that he had declared that he would not come to this country of Holland, and that he would have jumped overboard if they had not allowed him to depart.
The deponents declare also to have knowledge that nobody of the said Marcel's crew stayed assured in the said Virginia other than the Spaniard. Now, I said he was the first non-native resident of New York City. I just showed you how, when the explorers came, he had a fight and refused to go to Holland. They paid him with hatchets, knives, and muskets for trade with Native Americans for beaver, mind you, and he stayed in New Amsterdam, making him the first resident of New York City. Let's go on. This is a continuance of that said court case, and which you can find in the Dutch records of Juan Rodriguez. This is actual Dutch writing here. This is the translation. Once again, I'll try to get through this as quick as possible. But this is the actual court case. This is what was said. This is what's on the historical record. We, the said witnesses, jointly depose it to be true that when Hans Jurgensen or Tejas Marcel's sloop came up to May's ship from Horn, the same sloop remained lying there next to May's, yada, 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 and who were appointed to see and check sell on the goods. Dirk Clayson and Franz Johnson both declare it to be true that Juan Rodriguez, who was in the producer's service and who was on shore with certain trading goods, some of his cargo for trade, fired a shot. Yes, Juan Rodriguez was a bad dude, and he fired a shot at the people who had came back to disrupt his business. After the witnesses jumped all five into the boat with 5 men and went ashore, rowed to shore in a hurry, unarmed, without thought of the difficulty or danger. As soon as they came ashore, there they saw that many members of Marcel's crew, of whom Hans Jurgensen was the leader foremost, almost immediately followed, came with their boat, leaving the mess, armed with muskets and burning matches. They also went ashore where 4 members of their crew immediately attacked Juan Rodriguez. They took away his musket, drove him in the water, and arrested him by force. Then they said, here we go, Juan Rodriguez took the sword saber away from one of the crew of Hans Jurgensen, who held him. When they, the witnesses, saw this they witnessed, and they did their best to rescue him. They jumped in the water to get him, and they took the said Juan Rodriguez, who was injured, into their boat and rowed to their ship. And when one of the witnesses then asked Hans Jurgensen why they should arrest and injure Juan Rodriguez, the said Hans Jurgensen answered, that black rascal, actually in the Dutch records, referring to the said Juan Rodriguez. Here's some words on wanting. This is dealing with the transaction in order to get the money due us. And the other day when the said Dirk brought the sword that Juan Rodriguez had taken away from Hans Jurgensen back to the ship, Cornelius Jacobs May, he saw Juan Rodriguez's musket, which they had taken. And the story, pretty much, that's the end of the story. That's on the actual Dutch records, the story of the first resident of New York City who was a black rascal. And we know he was a mulatto man, so he was African. And his father was likely a Spaniard, because they called him a Spaniard, was the first resident of New York City. He was also an arms dealer, because they left him hatchets and muskets and sabers to trade with the Native Americans for fur. I stated to you that the first resident, non-native of New York City, was a black rascal, an international arms dealer. And I think I've proven my case from the actual primary documents, which state exactly that. Let's go on. We don't need to go through this. This is more of the end. This
is a court case, right?
That's the actual court case from the Dutch records. And that can be found, that's why I said, just give me a second. I know there's going to be questions. This is the book that you want to get. It is Juan Rodriguez in the Beginnings of New York City. It was done by Anthony Stevens Acevedo, Tony Waring, and Leonor Alvarez Francis. This was done by graduate students at the CUNY City College Dominican Studies Institute. And for further proof, in New York City, from 159th to 218th Street along Broadway is named Juan Rodriguez Way. See the sign? So all my people in New York City or visit, look up from 159th to 218th on Broadway. It's Juan Rodriguez Way. Interestingly enough, why is this? And Juan Rodriguez did not visit Uptown Manhattan where this is located. This is located uptown because there is a high, heavily concentrated Dominican population. And once these students did this research and saw that he had a Dominican background, through political influence, they got this area landmarked with Juan Rodriguez Way. This is the importance of knowing your history and it leading to landmarks and in turn political activism. So the Dominicans up there, they take Juan Rodriguez. We don't even know the story. But so for all those who want to find and see those exact Dutch records, this is the book that you want to get. And this is one of the few jewels that I give you. If you search hard enough, you may be able to find this book online for free. Let's move on. Now, Henry Hudson.
Damn, you got to pause after that. Go ahead, man. God.
Yeah, we got a lot to get through. This is Henry Hudson. Now, Henry Hudson was an English sea explorer and navigator during the early 17th century. Best known for his explorations
Dutch really get into
United States. In particular, we know it obviously because we have the Hudson River. Now, in 1609, he landed in North America searching for the Northeast Passage. He worked for the Dutch East India Company, and this is their flag right here. VOC in Dutch stands for Dutch East India Company. He sailed up the Hudson River, which is later named after him, and thereby laid the foundation for the Dutch colonization of the region. That source is Wikipedia. I use that because that's a general source where we can get general information about these people. He's not the main focus of our presentation. The reason that I bring him up now, he comes before Juan Rodriguez in 1609, and he doesn't find his Northeast Passage, but what he does bring back is beavers, and they had interest in that. So they said, okay, we'll look into the fur trade. Now, independent sailors start to come at this time, and amongst those groups is where Juan Rodriguez comes just 4 years after Henry Hudson had come to New York City, working for, because he was an Englishman, as we see, working for a Dutch company named the Dutch East India Company in their explorations. So that shouldn't be there. We'll keep going. This is the Dutch West India Company that we speak of. New York City was founded by a pirate company. The man who has run New York City the longest had a peg leg and owned the most Africans in New York City. I'm going to let this stay here for about 2.
By the way, this is from a couple months ago. No one has disputed what I said. So there you go.
3 to 5 seconds. So you can see what I'm saying, and I mean every word in the statement that I just presented to you. And then I will proceed to present the evidence, to show my case. So once again, New York City was founded by a pirate company. The man who has run New York City the longest had a peg leg and owned the most Africans in New York City. Let's go. The Dutch West India Company. Please, people who watch this who may be Dutch or no Dutch, I'm going to slaughter the language. I actually want to learn it or learn it better, but let me give it a try. Geo-Trier West Indies Company, right? So when you see these letters, these are the Dutch words for Dutch West India Company. This was their logo. Why are they important? So this man is named William Lennox, and in 1621, he founded a company named the Dutch West India Company. This is actually a picture of the Dutch West India Company house in Amsterdam. And what I highlighted here is you can still see those letters that I talked about in this picture, stating that this is the Dutch West India house. It actually says it up here, West Indies Heist, and that's in Dutch. He is the founder of the Dutch West India Company. So the Dutch West India Company was a chartered company, which means that it was a publicly traded company. It had a charter, like a charter school, right? of Dutch merchants as well as foreign investors.
So I just want to pause right there real quick. So we talked about and started this particular broadcast and talking about the Dutch masters and that connection, and so that those guilds played an important part. And I said that those were the merchants. And I said that those are the ones who sponsor and back these companies that lead to this Dutch West India Company and the Dutch East India Company. Hopefully now it's more clear and people can see the connection. So next time you see that Dutch Masters box, you understand how they are connected somehow due to the enslavement of Africans, but you understand how these crafts and these guilds worked.
On June 3rd, 1621, it was granted a charter for a trade monopoly in the Dutch West Indies by the Republic of the Sub-United Netherlands, right? And given jurisdiction over Dutch participation in the Atlantic slave trade, Brazil, the Caribbean, and North America. This company was founded and was given, basically, the Atlantic slave trade, Brazil, and the Caribbean, North America. This company founded New York City. Company. I'm going to keep stressing that. It was not a country. They were from a country, but it was a company that did it. This is the actual Dutch West India House in Amsterdam, and it still exists today. Part of my initiatives as well is, if I get the support, I'd like to go to Holland and deliver this same lecture and many others that I have before you. So, Dutch West India Company, this comes from the charter of the Dutch West India Company in 1621. You can find that at the Yale University site, right? And we finally, by experience, that without the common help, assistance, and interposition of a general company, the people designed from hence for those parts, people going there, cannot be profitably protected and maintained in their great risk from pirates, extortion, and otherwise, which will happen in so very long a voyage going to those places like Africa or Brazil or the Americas. We have therefore, and for several other important reasons and considerations as thereunto moving with mature deliberation of counsel, and for highly necessary causes, found it good that the navigation, trade, and commerce in the parts of the West Indies and Africa, this company was set up to exploit and take advantage of these regions in particular. Further goes on in their charter, where we have therefore, and for several other important reasons and considerations as thereunto moving with mature deliberation of counsel, and for highly necessary causes, found it good that the navigation, trade, and commerce in the parts of the West Indies and Africa and other places hereafter described should not henceforth be carried on any otherwise than by the common united strength of the merchants and inhabitants of these countries, being Holland. And for that end, there shall be erected one general company, which is the West India Company, which we, out of special regard to their common well-being, and to keep and preserve the inhabitants of those places in good trade and welfare. So I stated to you that after Henry Hudson, you had all of these other Netherlands shipping companies trying to get in and trying to exploit the beaver trade in this region. And they were having those fights, like the one we saw with the Black Rascal, the first resident of New York City, Juan Rodriguez. Those fights were occurring. And so the decision was to give this company control of this particular area that would soon become an area known as New Netherlands. And it was twofold in their reasons. It was multifaceted, but twofold in particular, as far as they wanted to interrupt the business that Spain and Portugal were doing in the New World. And they wanted to keep an eye on what England was doing, because they had a few years prior set up an establishment known as New England and the Virginians. The Dutch were at competition with England and at war with Portugal and Catholicism, because they were breaking away from it. So now with this, we can see in their charter where they built forts for slave trade in Africa and the West Indies, Dutch West India Company. Further, none of the natives or inhabitants of these countries shall be permitted to sail to or from the said lands or to traffic on the coasting countries of Africa from the Tropic of Cancer to the Cape of Good Hope, nor in the countries of America or the West Indies, but in the name of this United Company of these United Netherlands. I will stress to you once again that a company, the Dutch West India Company, which was a private company, founded and controlled New Amsterdam until 1664, a company called Dutch West India Company. Now, I have some disputes with academics. That's why I hope that they see this video at some point. The somewhat leaders or experts in this field, I have had an argument with or a discussion with about the use of pirate versus privateer. And then briefly, I will state the only difference between a pirate and a privateer is a permission slip. And that permission slip is called a letter of marque. If you look at the top of your Maker's Mark bottle, you will see a burning candle. That's what they made the seals with on the letters of marque. And so when you have a letter of marque or a permission slip from a country, you are able to go and pirate ships of other nations and what have you, and it's okay because you're a privateer. Now, when you lose that right to do it, the country stops sponsoring you, but you still continue those activities, then you are a pirate. So Captain Kidd at one point was a pirate. He was also a privateer because he worked for some of these companies. John Hawkins, the one that people know from slavery, was a pirate. But when he started to doing stuff in the name of England and getting letters to do this for England, he became a privateer. Same actions he took, same kidnappings, thefts, murders, and robbers. So I present and I state again, the people that you can contact are Charles Gehring, G-E-H-R-I-N-G. He is the leading official in this particular area. And also Russell Shorto, who wrote the book Island at the Center of the World. And also you can contact the New Netherlands Institute. And if you want the other people who are the officials and aficionados, I can give them to you and I will have to discuss this discussion with any of them. So let's go on. So with that said, this West India Company built the colony of New Netherlands, which extended from Connecticut to Delaware, and New Amsterdam, which is New York City, became its main city. So this right here is the seal of the province of New Netherlands. This was done in 1623. And at the center of it lies what? A beaver, showing you what the money was and what the purpose was. This right here is the first seal of New York City. At the time, it was called New Amsterdam. And you can see the date, 1654. You can see the letters right here of the Dutch West India Company. These X's, and when this is color, this is the flag of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And sitting atop of it is the beaver. Is this beaver right here. Showing you that the reason that New York was even New York was because of fur. I didn't tell you why initially, but fur was valuable because it was cold, and it is cold in places like the Netherlands, and they did not want to get hijacked by prices that Russians were charging for fur. So they found another outlet to exploit, which was New Netherlands. So this was money. It's like a dollar sign sitting up here. To them, this was it.
So I just want to pause real quick. Now, we talked about on that Dutch Masters box were the drapers. And the drapers were the ones that was doing the clothes and what have you. And we just talked about them making fur coats, fur hats, and whatever. So now when you look at your Dutch Masters box, you can see the direct connection on how those guilds sponsored this particular company, the Dutch West India Company, and one of their exploits was to exploit the beaver trade for furs. So you're looking at the Dutch Masters box, and you're looking at the people who got those furs and sponsored those journeys and expeditions and did what they did. That's another connection when you're looking at that Dutch Masters box.
Let's go on. This is a map of New Netherlands. And I don't know if you guys can see that clear. I should have highlighted more stuff, but this is a map of New Netherlands from 1700s. This is Long Island right here, and Manhattan is in here. Hopefully you can see where my highlighter is moving. And somewhere on here, I didn't put the part, but there's beavers to show you like the types of turkeys and to show you type of animals that this showing lived here and what have you. But this is the proposed seal for for the colony of New Amsterdam, which is New York, showing you once again, it's the other one in color, beavers, the Dutch West India sign, and this is the flag of the city of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. This was New York's proposed seal in 1630. And you can find this at the New York Historical Society. Let's go. So, Fort Amsterdam. Some of the trading and slave forts that the West India Company named Amsterdam. Why? Because the West India Company was founded in Amsterdam in Holland after the city it was founded. So let's take a look at Fort Amsterdam. There we have Fort Amsterdam in Quarantine, West Africa, showing the Dutch presence in West Africa. Quarantine is the Ghana region of the Gold Coast, and you see the flag atop. Sometimes you may see the flag in red, white, and blue. The colors of the Dutch flag at one point changed from orange, white, and blue to red, white, and blue, but for the most part, they had orange, white, and blue. So this is why you'll see the distinction sometime in the two. They also had a Fort Amsterdam in St. Martin in the Caribbean. Hopefully you can see where the highlight is moving. This is Fort Amsterdam there. So they weren't even that creative. Let's continue. They also have a Fort Amsterdam that you can go and see in Curacao. There's the flag, orange, white, and blue to this day, still flying at Fort Amsterdam, representing that West India Company. So we got Africa, the Caribbean, Curacao. We have this Fort Amsterdam. Oh, what do we have here? We have a Fort Amsterdam in New York City. That is this highlight right here, this diamond-looking thing. And over here, you have what? This is a map. This is an actual map from the from New Amsterdam from 1660. This is an actual historical map. Right here is the wall for Wall Street. Yes, there was an actual wall on Wall Street. This is Broadway right here. Is the broadest street. Under the Dutch, it was named de Heerstraat. And for the Native Americans, they called it the Wickwaskeck Trail, because this is why Broadway leads to the whole island. The Native Americans, for the most part, did not live down this area. They were seasoned. So they would come down Broadway during the season and do what they did, burn down everything, because that was their way of trying to replenish the land, and then march up all the way back uptown to where they lived at the end of the island, for the most part. So when it came to trade of beavers, they would come down with their beavers and right down Broadway and come to into the fort and trade their beavers for trinkets. Or vice versa, they're taking the trinkets, leaving the fort, which sits in the beginning of Wall Street, down by the Bull, down by the business center, right there. So the Wick built a fort at the tip of Manhattan with African labor. Yes, Africans built this fort. Lenape, who were the Native Americans, used this trail to Heerstraat, like we mentioned, to sell and trade beaver. Now, Broadway runs north and south through the entire borough of Manhattan. That's why it's an important street, but we can see that the Native Americans made this vital way before the European comes. So, ironically, today, at the site of the former Fort Amsterdam is the Museum of the American Indian. You see how, we got to learn these secrets. There's dirty tricks going on here. They put a museum of the Native American at the same spot that was responsible for basically the elimination of Native American. It's the museum for them, and it's the former site of Fort Amsterdam. How do I know this? Here's your evidence. When you walk up these stairs and you go inside this building, this plaque is here. This plaque reads, "The site of Fort Amsterdam, built in 1626. Within the fortifications was erected the first substantial church edifice on the island of Manhattan," and yada, yada, yada. This site, not this building, this site is the site of the former Fort Amsterdam. So we have a Fort Amsterdam in Curacao, one in West Africa, one in the Caribbean, and one in New York City, all run and maintained by the Dutch West India Company. Here's another shot from the Castillo plan. You need to look this up if you're interested. It's an old map from 1660. And I just want to zoom in to show you a better idea of what the fort at the beginning of Manhattan looked like. And flying right above it is the Dutch West India Company flag. Fort Amsterdam, New York City, run by the Dutch. And even further, so the flag of the West Indian Company, like I mentioned, flew over various forts they controlled in Africa and the Americas. It also flew proudly in New York City. So when you take the family to Epcot, to Disney World, they have the Epcot American Adventure, and they have an area called the Disney Corridor of Flags. In that is all the old flags of different countries that laid some claims into sections of America throughout historically. And look what we have here. The West India Company flag is right there. As you can, right there, right? It's telling you the story that we don't know about. These guys responsible, major part of our enslavement, and besides the foundation of New York. But yeah, right here. This company, kidnappers and pirates. In Epcot, go to the corridor of flags. All these are historical flags, and it's just, I'm showing this slide to prove my point that this is not just mumbo jumbo. This is real. Let's go on. So this is the flag of the Netherlands in Holland from 1572 to 1795. It's the flag of the Dutch West India Company. Get it? It's a secret. This is the flag of New York City. This is the tricolor flag. Same colors as the flag, denoting the origin of that company and that country. And the symbols in this flag give clues to the history. Let's take a closer look. These are the symbols in that flag. This is the seal of New York City. This is the sailor. The sailor represents the Dutch explorers. It's funny, in heraldry, which is this type of stuff that we're looking at, this position in heraldry is called Dexter. This position right here, who represented by the Lenape, is called Sinister. It's messed up, right? So when we discuss this, they mention that Dexter is this, and Native American is named Sinister. On this seal, their actual names are Dexter and Sinister. In the middle, we have something here. This is the actual New York City seal. Why do we have two beavers here? Going back to the importance of beavers as money in the establishment of of New York, and what it was made for. And the windmill also represented industry, and somewhat of the Dutch. There's other stuff behind what this could represent is the St. Andrew's Cross, same X's that are on the Amsterdam flag, but we can go into that later. 1625, you find it's not the exact date. It changed on the seal, and it's all somewhat of an arbitrary date because of when New Amsterdam was actually purchased, and when, anyway, this is an arbitrary date. And you can go ask any New York historian, and they'll tell you the same thing. But that's not the main focus of this, although 1625 would be an important date for us in this presentation. This is the flag of Manhattan. This is the flag of the Bronx. Anybody starting to see a theme here? Those are all the secrets that we overlook. And people in the Bronx, Manhattan, New York, Idaho, whatever, who've seen these things we're not taught to put these clues together. And if you teach your children these things, especially as far as New Yorkers are concerned, they'll understand the history of New York and see themselves in it by the end of this presentation. But with that said, when you ask your kid who founded New York, they can look up at the flag. This flag is in every city park and government building in New York, and he or she will tell you the Dutch because they know those colors. And you'll ask them why, and they'll say because they came wanting some beavers, and he'll look at the same flag. And they'll ask you who they get the beavers from, and they'll see the Lenape on this flag. And now your kid will understand the history of New York and will have visual clues, but will never forget this information. This is the type of information and the ways that I am trying to encourage my team to get this information and present it so that the children always have these reminders of history, because it's all around them, and in many cases it's free. So this is the flag of Manhattan. This is the flag of the Bronx, orange, white, and blue, representing the country and the company that ran New York City. This is a map of the Netherlands. Let's take a look what we have on this map. On this map, we have a place called Harlem. This isn't New York. This is the Netherlands. This is Amsterdam. We have a place called Harlem. Where we go? Right here. We have a place called...
So briefly, we talked about the Dutch masters, and we looked at the second portrait, and we said that that was the Harlem Guild of St. Luke. And we talked about that Harlem, and I said that was 16-something before Harlem was formed like we know it in New York City. And this is showing, although I'm going to explain in the video here, I just wanted to point out, because I went over it, Harlem, this is where that guild was from. And so that particular guild, along with these other guilds, we see connected to the water. And if you know anything about Amsterdam, which is over here, they have canals running through the whole city. I won't go into it too much, but that's where the ships used to come in. They built certain type of skinny ships that would come in. Remember, many of the Jews have moved here, so a lot of the stuff that they're getting from the nations and places that they're coming from makes Amsterdam the World Trade Center. Because they come in and they have easy access to those canals and that run through the whole city. They come and drop off the pirated merchandise to stores there, and they get other materials and they go right back out. But in particular, this is Harlem, and this is Netherlands, not New York.
Called Nordwick. I want people to remember this name. Write it down. This will come up later. Nordwick. I did it here for a reason. We also have a place called Amsterdam. We have a place called Amsterdam, New York. We certainly do. We have a place called Amsterdam Avenue in Harlem. We certainly do. There's a place in Amsterdam and Holland called Brooklyn. Do we have a place in New York City called Brooklyn? Yes, we do. Here's a place called Newkirk. Do we have a place called Newkirk in Brooklyn? Yes, we do. But this isn't New York. Are we looking at? Oh, no, this is Holland and Amsterdam that we're looking at. The distance between Harlem and Amsterdam in Holland is roughly 12 miles, right? The distance between Wall Street, which was the center of New Amsterdam, and Harlem, New York, is 11.2 miles, roughly 12 miles. Roughly 11 miles, but give or take a mile. Coincidence? But let's dig deeper. Towns in the Netherlands, like I mentioned, Brooklyn, Harlem, Amsterdam, Noordwoord. The people who control the Netherlands are called the Staten-Generaal. This is their logo. The States General. This is where we get the name Staten Island from.
So here go another secret I'm looking at. I don't think I said it in this video. If you look at the Staten-Generaal's logo, you see this belt. For those in New York as well, look at the logo for Fordham University and you're going to see a belt. For the town of New Rochelle, I believe, yeah, New Rochelle, you're going to see this belt as well. And for connection to the Ethiopians and the Jamaicans, I won't get into it right now, but this is, if you know this, Jamaicans with their belt in a long fashion like this, some of them, and that's also a connection to this, which I won't get in, but I'll just say this. Look up Knights of the Garter. You can take your journey from there. So I'll just give you that one. Look up Knights of the Garter, those people in New York, if you're interested, or those who aren't, look up Fordham University's logo. Look up, like I said, the town of New Rochelle, and there's a few other ones, but you can start there.
These are the people who actually ran the government, and they paid tribute to them by naming that particular place Staten Island after the state's general. Get it? Map of Netherlands. Isn't New York. This is Amsterdam. Brooklyn, Harlem, Amsterdam, Newkirk. There's tons of other ones, but I think you get the picture. New York sports teams. Here's my sports fans. Why do the Islanders wear orange, white, and blue? Why do the Knicks wear orange, white, and blue? It is for the company that founded the city. They are representing the West India Company.
Goddamn.
This right here is Father Knickerbocker. This was actually the Knicks' first logo. I won't go into it too much, but Knickerbockers were considered the Dutch businessmen. And they wore these knickers or shorter pants, like you see. And so you get Knickerbocker from. It's from a famous book by Washington Irving, which I won't go into now. But anyway, Knickerbocker. This is their logo. This is the Westchester Knicks, who is their, what do you call them? They don't call them the D-League team, but their other team who took the old Father Knickerbocker logo, but they still have the orange, white, and blue colors, representative of, that's right, the Dutch West India Company and Holland. The state bird for New York is the eastern bird. Notice anything about the colors on this bird? The state bird of New York? Orange, white, blue. Come on, this is another connection to 420. So remember we started this and we're talking about Dutch masters and all that. That's not trippy if you 420 in it at any point, that you realize and look that this stuff goes so deep that the daggone state bird of New York is even this color. I mean, not for nothing, but that's some trippy stuff. The New York state bird is picked to represent the Dutch West India Company, the company that founded and ran New York City. Now, the Dutch West India Company eventually had something called patroons. Patroons were landholders who had manorial rights, or they were like the feudal landlords. And they were given large tracts of land in New Netherlands. And they were given this thing called the Charter of Freedoms and Exemptions, which we'll go through. And some of these patroons is a guy named Kilian van Rensselaer. Actually, he never came to America. It's the crazy part of it. Never stepped foot in America. He owned most of Albany. And if you go upstate Albany, New York, you have Rensselaer County, and people who know about colleges know Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. It was named after Rensselaer, who was a Dutch patroon for the Dutch West India Company and given this land. And Rensselaer, in fact, had the most enslaved Africans in New Netherlands. He basically owned all of Albany. That was his farmland, which they call Rensselaerwyck. This is a man named Michael Paul. Michael Paul wasn't as successful patroon as Kilian van Rensselaer, but I put him in here because people in the area might know a place in New Jersey called Pavonia, Newport, right across the water in Jersey City, and that is named after Michael Paul. Don't believe me? Go to Newport, New Jersey, and look at the sign. The southeast of this spot, the Half Moon, which is Henry Hudson's ship, anchored here September 11 to 12, 1609. Here, the community of Pavonia was established January 10, 1630. This is important because here, the freedoms and exemptions given to patroons was given 1629. After they got this, they started populating this area with poor Dutch workers and Africans. And then they got into wars with Native Americans. There's a big war if you want to look up called the Pavonia Massacre, and you can see it. But just showing you that this is named after one of these Dutch West India Company directors. All of this stuff. Let's go on. So this freedoms and exemptions, what did it say? Okay, 1629, the Wick ran the town and the beaver trade. The company ran it, and patroons were given black labor, but the blacks worked for the company. They did not work or were not bought by the individual people. They were possession, for lack of a better word, of the company. And the company promised to finish the fort. How do I make these statements? Well, in Section 15 of that freedom's exemptions, it says, it shall also be permitted that the aforesaid patroons all along the coast of New Netherland and places circumjacent to trade their goods, products of that country, all sorts of merchandise that may be had there, except beavers, otters, minks, and all other sorts of peltry, which trade alone the company, which means that the company alone reserves the right to trade. You don't get to sell beavers if you come in. That's all the company's money. This is number 30. The company will endeavor to supply the colonists with as many blacks as it possibly can on the conditions hereafter to be made without ever being bound to do so to a greater extent or for a longer time than it shall see fit. I repeat, the company will endeavor to supply the colonists with as many blacks as it possibly can. Ain't that something? The reason that they got New York populated is because they promised these people that they would give them Africans so they could exploit their labor. This is why New York and this metropolitan area gets populated. Because they said, look, we'll give you the blacks to do the work. You just come here and do something. Everybody worked for the company. Those blacks that they gave them. Let's go on. Little funny break here. Is Phil Jackson the missing link? Why do I ask that? Well, he won these championships with the Knicks in 70 and 73. Go away so I know I'm correct, please. Yep, 70 and 73. And he also, did you know this? Won a championship with a team called the Albany Patroons. This is where he won his first championship. See where they get the name from? Patroons? We just saw who the patroons were. The exploiters of your people and of the land and of the Native Americans. Albany was Renseilla's town, so they did the team up there and called it the Albany Patroons. And you can see the Dutch clog right here as well, denoting that heritage. Little jokey joke, but I just wanted to put some history. So now, if your kids are in the basketball or sports and they know about Phil Jackson, you can relate a story. Now you have clues like Knickerbockers and Patroons in order for them to understand this history. This is the flag of Albany. Get it already with the orange, white, and blue? I'm sure. If we look closer at it, you'll see that this is the beaver right here, chopping down a tree, the beavers here. So the beavers represented commerce. They were the money. City College, University. Name of their sports team is the City College Beavers. This is that city seal again. You can get a closer look at these two animals right here in the New York City seal beavers. Now, New York is the Empire State and the creme de la creme as far as some people on the planet are concerned. And ask yourself, these things must be really important and vital if they threw two beavers on the city seal to represent the city. Something to think about. Along with that, colonization and exploitation. So, who's this guy? That was a pirate company. This guy, Director General for the WIC. His name is Peter Stuyvesant. He was the longest run. So, I just want to make a note here. Our previous video to this one, Brother Rob Bourne and I were in Manhattan and we talked about Peter Stuyvesant. And just to go into more detail on that. So if you get a chance, watch that one as well. Running leader in New York City history, 1647 to 1664. He ran a trade of Africans in Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, West Indies, and New Amsterdam. Peter Stuyvesant had a peg leg with silver rings. Peter Stuyvesant owned the most Africans in the city. Peter Stuyvesant in 1664 blamed the Africans for the reason that the Dutch lost New York to the British. This is a Peter Stuyvesant statue in the Netherlands with his peg leg. He's a director, and the Netherlands are proud of Peter Stuyvesant. This is the Peter Stuyvesant statue in Aruba, because he was Director General of Aruba. You go, you see, I don't want this to come up. You see at the bottom, Peter Stuyvesant, Director General van or of New Netherlands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao. Okay, so we got Peter Stuyvesant in Netherlands and Aruba. It's Peter Stuyvesant in Curacao. He used to stand at the top of a school, but I think 2015, this statue was taken down, removed because of his racism and his slavery. Because he was director and ruled and direct. So this is important to note about. We talk about activism and the things that we can do. And this is what Brother Rob Bourne and I talked about, specifically in that Stuyvesant video. And we can see that the island of Curacao, which Peter Stuyvesant was Director General of, like he was of New York City, had the statue removed from their school for racism and slavery. Now, we should keep that in mind. Those who see that this was a good form of activism, obviously they don't have this representation anymore. That's something that we can do. Now, let's see, are there Peter Stuyvesant statues around? Are there things named after him? Let's look at this. For the West India Company of Curacao. This is Peter Stuyvesant in New York City, in an area called Stuyvesant Square, close to a place called Stuyvesant Town, New York City. I told you that the leader was a pirate and had a peg leg. Here's the peg leg of Peter Stuyvesant, just like it was on the other statues. He was a pirate, and he was a slave trader. How about once again proving my point about New York City was founded and run by a pirate company, and its longest running leader not only was a pirate, but had a peg leg and was a slave trader. Let's go further. This is Peter Stuyvesant's burial where he actually is, in Stuyvesant Town. He's actually buried in New York City on his Bowery, and Bowery is the Dutch word for farm. So he's buried on a farm that he had. See? Captain General and Governor-in-Chief of Amsterdam in New Netherlands, now called New York. And the Dutch West India wards, which are the areas that they had in New York City. Even further, Peter Stuyvesant, the New York City leader, pirate, and slave trader, has so many things named after him. There's a high school in New York called Collegiate. Look at their mascot. The Dutchman, and has a peg leg. Guess who this is? Peter Stuyvesant. One of the, actually probably the premier high school in New York City is named Stuyvesant High School. The name is Stuyvesant High School Peg Legs. This is their mascot, or was their former mascot, named after the pirate and slave trader with the peg leg, Peter Stuyvesant. How else did they big this dude up? Stuyvesant Town in New York. Bedford Stuyvesant, my home. Brooklyn is named after the slave trading pirate Peter Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant High School, as I mentioned, upstate New York, there's a Stuyvesant, New York. There's the street sign in Brooklyn, Stuyvesant Ave, yes, where they filmed Parts to Do the Right Thing. There also was a Peter Stuyvesant cigarette. Did you know that? And if you looked carefully at the cigarette, guess what the logo is? It's the same logo of the city of New Amsterdam. See the arrow? And look here, there's the beaver right here. There's the 3 X's on the pack of cigarettes. We worry about Illuminati and all these clues. See how many clues we're missing right in front of our face about our history? But we're looking on the back of a dollar and all this crazy stuff. Let's go on. Now, let's get in the nitty gritty. What's evidence? A lot of talking, right? A lot of statues and Laws and ordinances of New Netherlands, 1638 to 1674. The West India Company and colonists kidnapped and brought Africans to New Amsterdam. Yeah, I said it. Let's look what they said in 1655. Whereas the Director General and Council of New Netherlands find that Negroes lately arrived here in the little ship, the White Parrot from the Bight of Guinea. Lately arrived, I mean, they're already there, right? Africans being imported into New Netherlands or New Amsterdam. Who's this signed by? Peter Stuyvesant. This guy. Right? Let's look further at the note. By a resolution dated November 5th, 1654, the Amsterdam Chamber of the West India Company, right, proceed with their ship, the White Parrot, to the coast of Africa for slaves to dispose of them in New Netherlands.
Bring that back. Bring it back. Run that back.
There's a lot more, man. There's a lot more. There's a lot more. There's a lot more. To proceed with their ship, the White Parrot, to the coast of Africa for slaves and to dispose of them in New Netherlands. And tend to the increase of population and the advancement of said place. We depend on the Africans to increase the population and advancement of said place. Increasing population not to sex, but to encourage people from Europe to come there because you too, remember the promise, will get a black to do your work. Now, what's the last line say? This was the first cargo of slaves imported into New Netherlands, or the present territory of the state of New York, direct from Africa into New Netherlands, New York. Now, same laws and ordinances. Negroes imported from Africa to New Amsterdam in order to favor this plantation. And you can find this is dated 1652. In order to favor this plantation the more, we hereby consent on a proposal of the inhabitants that they shall be at liberty to bring in their own ships from the coast of Africa as many Negroes as they shall have need of for the cultivation of the soil, and that on the conditions and regulations herewith transmitted. You can find that in laws and ordinances of the New Netherlands and also in the New York colonial records. Now, the colonial records also say, by which it appears that the merchants of New Amsterdam who were willing to embark in the slave trade were not to go further west on the coast of Africa than Arter or at most. So the West India Company said, yeah, y'all New Netherlanders can go there, but you can't go to the whole coast, because we want to make sure we get the best ones to send to Brazil. Now, you have the Negroes thus imported were to be taxed 15 guilders a head, said duty payable, listen to this, said duty for blacks paid for in tobacco or beaver.
So I mentioned that in New York City and its connection to the Dutch masters, since it was 420, and we talked about tobacco, and I said there's a correlation between the beavers and tobacco as well. I also mentioned that the Africans who were in New York City worked on tobacco plantations. The Dutch had tobacco plantations in all of their colonies. I know it's hard for people to think about when it comes to New York City, but that was farmland for tobaccos, and who they had working on those farms were the Africans. Now, beaver became a source of money as well as tobacco was, but primarily beaver. Beaver was currency, but also tobacco. Now, Africans were sold for things like barrels of hogsheads of tobacco, for beaver fur. And one case that I have, I don't know if I put it in this one, Peter Stuyvesant, I think, allowed people to be so Africans were sold for pork and beans. Something to think about.
They bought our ancestors for beaver fur. Let that sink in. Amsterdam Chamber of the West India Company, which had the control of the African trade company that ran New York. Laws and ordinances, once again, this is from 1648. And this is telling you about, I'll read a little bit. Resolved that private inhabitants of New Netherlands shall be allowed to export their country produce, this is a triangular trade, what did agriculture and suitable duty in their own or chartered ships to Brazil and Angola on these following conditions. First, that the aforesaid ships, when in Brazil, shall not be at liberty to return back with sugars to New Netherlands because they wanted all the sugar to go to Europe because sugar was like crack. So no, don't try to take those to New Netherlands. All that sugar got to come here. So secondly, that the permit to proceed to Angola shall be granted only provisionally, and that for the time that the dispensation shall continue in regard to transportation of slaves, which was accorded on Thursday last. Africans being imported from Angola to New Netherlands. This is a letter, once again, showing you how the Jews are even involved in this, because it says in a letter to Peter Stuyvesant, and whereas some of the Jewish nation of Juan de Leon, Sean, if you're listening, you can look that one up, a colonizer on the aforesaid island of Curacao, here we go, have requested permission to buy and transport to aforesaid island some Negroes who were to come to New Netherlands, Jewish slave traders working for the Dutch West India Company. If you really want to study Curacao, and you will find many of the Jews there, and the ones and descendants of the ones who were slave traders. Here's your primary source for that as well. Let's go on. There's another primary source from correspondence of, I can't pronounce the name, Simon Lachey, but you can find this. Another letter to Peter Stuyvesant. What does this one say? It says that it is true that people are busy at The Hague, which is in the Netherlands, to high and mightiness to bring about a general reform on the colonies, and New Netherlands would not be forgotten. See? New Netherlands, I'll just give a backstory. New Netherlands' bigger thing under Peter Stuyvesant is they were like the little bastard child of exploitation. Brazil was the prize. India with the East India Company. Nobody cared about New Netherlands. The beavers were cute, but it wasn't the big money maker. Big money maker was the sugar and the natural resources. So, it was, and they were not allowed for a while to go directly from New Netherlands to Africa to get Africans. And they kept begging, They wanted to build ships and the whole bit. So finally, as you saw with those letters, the company relented and let them do it. So now this was the saying, you will not be forgotten. So anyway, a provisional resolution has already been passed that, okay, where do we go from here? There shall be allowed to ship their own products, this is triangular trade, as flour, fishes, meat, bacon, and peas, and beans, and everything else in their own or chartered bottoms to Brazil and Angola, and that the ships returning may take freight from Brazil, but those coming back from Angola are to bring Negroes to be employed in farming. The orders from the Dutch West India Company going to Peter Stuyvesant, telling him what you better bring those Africans from Angola to do. We too have the right to send a ship to Angola with an assortment of provisions and provide and bring back Negroes from Angola. Let's go on. This is where they were in Angola. This is Fort Ardenburg. And they had been fighting with the Portuguese for this fort for 100 years. And it will go back and forth between the Portuguese and Dutch and what have you. It was named something different under the Portuguese. This is their presence in Angola. This is where they're getting Angolan Africans from. Right here. When it was under the Portuguese, they raided the ships, pirating. And then they, took over and had a presence in Angola. The Dutch actually have a pretty big influence had a very big influence in Congo and Angola. Not as big as the Portuguese, but it was pretty big. What do we have here? We have a primary document, another one of that same Gideon ship. This is the exact and actual certificate of the ship landing in New Amsterdam from Africa. This is your primary source from Africans being imported into New York.
So there's a question that people like to throw about where is the ship manifest and so forth and so on. So I think the next couple of slides, people can see firsthand the actual things written in this instance Dutch from 1664, denoting that a ship came from Africa on account of the West India Company, and they brought those Africans, 153 men and 137 women, to New Amsterdam. You can't get no more primary than this. Now, I think the cute question is then to ask, the silly things, well, how do we know who was who? But you're not going to get the names of Joe, Kunta, and Frank on this. You're going to get 153 men, 137 women. They're going to tell you their point of origination and obviously the destination. This is a primary source. This is how people do things and research them. I don't know what else to say to that point, but people often ask that like it's some type of gotcha. And there are plenty of these type of things that are out there.
Certificate of the landing at New Amsterdam on the 14th of August of 290 slaves, 153 men, 137 women from the ship Gideon on account of the West India Company. You can find this source at the New York State Archives. It's there. There you go. Here's your proof. But we got a lot more. Now, so the Africans in New York, right? We just spent the last half an hour, 40 minutes talking. And I think this is what the people wanted to come for primarily. But I wanted to give a background on the environment that these Africans step into, the world that they lived in, the economics, and the sort of the moving parts that have been going on. This is actually an actual drawing from the 1700s of New Amsterdam. See, New Amsterdam up here, don't be fooled because there's some tricks to this. This was a generic picture that they had used for, I think, a couple of places. This isn't actually New Amsterdam, but this is what they wanted to do. Because I guess they were lazy and they just put different things in it. Why? I say this because the point of view of where they're standing, if this is New York, yes, this sign is in the way. I don't want to move right now. Then they would have to be standing somewhere outside of Manhattan to look into Manhattan. But what it does show, if you look at the bottom, look at these figures here. These are Africans who are representative of Africans in New Amsterdam who are being exploited for agriculture. That's who these people are in this picture. That's what they're supposed to represent. And you can see the man trading some type of skins to this woman for a basket of food, showing you the importance of those skins, whether furs or otters or minks or what have you. Right? It's something that people need to jot down as well. I hope people are writing stuff down, and I hope. Anyway, the grand design, something you can Google. What is the grand design? The grand design was a plan devised in 1623 by the Dutch West India Company to seize the Portuguese Spanish possessions of Iberian Union in Africa and the Americas, to pirate them and to disrupt their business, like I mentioned, in order that the Spanish would not collect enough money for their war against the Netherlands. The plan was to first seize the capital of Brazil, and then the main Portuguese fort in the coast of Angola. And this way, the company would control both the lucrative sugar plantations in Brazil and the Atlantic slave trade.
So this one is important. I just wanted to pause this. People in the chat, I see you talking about the connection with Portugal, and we need to study this relationship between Portugal, Spain, and the Dutch. This is important if you're interested in that particular part, is for you to look up the grand design. So you can find this on Google on Wikipedia to get a head start. And if you want to find the primaries and go deeper, there are other links to it. But this grand design was important because it shows you why that company was founded, and you get to understand the layout of the Americas a little bit more. And a lot of those possessions were strategic. Like I mentioned, the Dutch came into that particular region because above it sits New England, and below it sits their other possession of the Virginias. But you have the Spanish who are below that in Florida. So the English had to do certain things, which I won't get into now, which had the creation of Georgia. So a lot of these creations of islands and states are strategic moves that go to a greater war that the mother countries have been fighting, in some cases, 80 years or more.
Dutch West India Company. You can find that, start on Google, start on Wiki, and you can grow from there if you really want to get into grand design. But yes, that was a part of the grand design. This is why they were pirating and fighting with Portugal, because they were part of a war that was an 80-year war. We're not going to get into that right now. All right. So what do we have here? This is an example of them doing just that. It says the commissioners from the same correspondence book, in 1625 or 1626, African and Atlantic Creole sailors were kidnapped from Spanish ships. Here's an example of them doing just that. So 1653, it is concerning the privateering. Remember that word? Look it up. Find out the difference between privateering and pirating. It's just that permission slip. Or sailing by, what did I mention? Letters of marque have made their report and encourage everyone at this juncture in time to equip a ship or ships to inflict damage on the Portuguese. This is a resolution of the West India Company to encourage, quote unquote, privateering. Actual historical document from 1653, them raiding them ships and taking Africans and everything else. Correspondence 1647 and 1653, you can find it out. So they have a history now of Dutch raiding ships and taking Africans, both free and enslaved, because Africans had been a century in the Americas already, and some of them happen to be free and some of them happen to be sailors. So when they took a ship, they would take the ones that was in the bottom and change, as well as the ones who were free and sailors, and they sell them as well. This is historically proven by this document and others of what their privateering activities were. So, however, the Negroes captured with the prizes taken at sea may be sent with the knowledge of the government in Brazil to such places as the purchasers choose. However, the Negroes captured with the prizes were the Africans already enslaved, in the chains, the gold, and all the other sugar or whatever they found. Who were the Negroes? Those Negroes were those free Africans who was on those ships. They captured, they may be sent to wherever you so want to sell them to. Now, if people want to think about how those first Africans come to Virginia, they come from a Dutch man of war. What is a man of war? It is a battleship, like a privateering ship, because they had taken those first Africans, ended up in Virginia, Anthony Johnson and others, from Spanish ships. This is why Anthony Johnson's real name is Antonio Negro, because he was a free black man under the Spanish realm, whatever you want to call it, who was kidnapped. And so, first 11 Africans of New Amsterdam, the first 11 Africans were brought to New York in 1625 or 1626. We know who they are. I repeat, we know who they are.
Prove it.
Listen, bro, by the end of this, Paulo Angola, Simon Congo, Manuel Garit, Jan Fort Orange, Anthony Portuguese, Klein Antonio, Grazia Angola. These are some of them. We have their names. Let's look at another example and examine their names further, because their names reveal their backgrounds. Paulo Angola, Grazia Angola. The Dutch fought Portugal for control of Fort Ardenburg in Angola. We talked about that. So they have an influence in the region, and they're snatching people from Angola. The other name, Simon Congo, Peter Santome. Sao Tome or Santome and Congo were controlled by the Dutch and Portuguese. Here's Sao Tome. This arrow is an island off of the west coast of Africa. And here's Congo. These are their names, the first Africans in New York. We know their backgrounds. We know who they are. Some of the first 11 Africans were Atlantic Creoles. Yes, Neb, I put it in here. Jan Francisco and Anthony Portuguese fall under that. Now, Atlantic Creole is a term used in North America to describe the chartered generations of slaves and indentured workers during the European colonization of the Americas before 1660. These slaves had cultural roots in Africa, Europe, and sometimes the Caribbean. They were of mixed race, not always, primarily descended from European fathers and African mothers. Some had lived and worked in Europe or the Caribbean before coming or being transported to America. They're familiar with this systems that they're in. They knew how to manipulate it. We'll get to that later. Some of these mixed race Atlantic Creoles were culturally what today is called Latino in the United States, as they were descended from Portuguese and Spanish fathers, primarily in the trading ports of West Africa. They had surnames such as Chavez, Rodriguez, Juan Rodriguez, and Francisco. Let's go back up here. Jan Francisco, Anthony Portuguese. So we have Congolese, Angolans, and Atlantic Creoles. We have a book. This is a very important book. I think people should read it. They want to understand more. Central Africans, Atlantic Creoles, and the Foundation of the Americas, 1585 to 1660. This is by Linda Haywood and John Thornton. Congolese, Angolans, Atlantic Creoles. So the first 11 Africans in New York were owned, quote unquote, by the West India Company. We mentioned that. They were not owned or they were not workers of the actual people, but they for the company, not the colonists. They were put to work doing agriculture. The word Bowery, Bowery Street in New York, is Dutch for farm. They worked on the farms in the Boweries. For tobacco, yes, Africans had tobacco farms in New York City. And farming. Remember they said they needed the Africans for the agriculture? They also did municipal work in the building of Fort Amsterdam, the building of Wall Street. Wall Street was actually an actual wall, as well as cutting wood and clearing land, and of course, much, much more. Let's take a look. So here's your primary. One of the New York historical manuscripts, right? It was translated from Dutch. This is Jacob Stockelson, who was what? Overseer of the Negroes, right? So what does he say? He says, Jacob Stockelson, I was an overseer, was as overseer of the Negroes belonging to the company. Told you, it worked for the company. Constantly employed with said Negroes in the building of Fort Amsterdam, which was completed in the year 1635. Also in cutting timber and firewood, as well as for the large house, as for the guardhouse, splitting rails, clearing land, burning lime, and helping to gather the company's grain in the harvest, and consider other such works which we perform with the Negroes, all of which the opponent declares to be true. Done to this bear testimony 1639. This man, who was their overseer, has now just told you that those Africans built the fort and basically were all the municipal workers and did the agriculture. Proof. His letter. This is the X mark of Jacob Stockelson, who was the overseer of the Negroes. This is what they were doing here. This is the proof when we say that Africans built this city, and if it wasn't for the Africans, there would be no New York. You would not eat, you would not have defenses, and you would not have a colony. Let's go on. There's another one from the Dutch historical records. What does it say? The Board of Knights, this is from 1652 at Fort Amsterdam. The Board of 9 men came into the council chamber and requested of the presiding officer that the Honorable Council please forbid the shooting of hogs on the walls of the fort. Yes, they had animals running wild. So the Director General approved the request of the commonalty that and furnished by his own servants or Negroes. And they'll fix the palisades, those are, the beams on the fort and the wall. Now, here's Fort Amsterdam from the actual map, from the Castile. Is it the Castile? Yeah, it's Castile. A plan. Here's the fort. Here's Broadway. Here's what do we notice here? See this thing right here? This is Wall Street. There was an actual wall on Wall Street that the Africans had to build. Here's a sign if people come to New York and go to Wall Street that'll tell you that this is the site of the Wall of New Amsterdam. In 1653, the city of New Amsterdam erected a wall along the northern edge of town to protect the inhabitants from attack. Wall Street had a wall, and it was built by Africans. So when somebody said the Africans built Wall Street, pull out these primaries for them.
All right, so honestly, not for nothing, but this video is really important. I think those who get it. So instead of talking in a hyperbole and just fantastic speech to make ourselves feel better, this video arms you with, once again, the primary information for when you make a statement like the Africans built Wall Street. You're not just talking something. You have the actual evidence to prove it. Or when you say a statement like the Africans own a major part of New York City in the 1600s, you have the evidence to prove it now, and they were free. It's just a different feeling. I hope people get it now that you're armed and you can confidently tell your children, tell your mother, go argue with your kid's school teacher or get the books changed or whatever it is, because you have the evidence. And each one of these things, I think I provided the sources for you to go and do just that. So now you get confidence in saying those statements, and they don't seem as fantastic as they might when you're not armed with the evidence. So yes, the Africans built Wall Street, and here's your proof. The Africans own a major part of New York City, and that proof will be shown shortly.
Now, why isn't it here? This isn't in a way, but around here it says African tobacco farmers in New York City. This is from 1642, and it tells you that on the plantation.
Once again, real quick, here goes that connection to the Dutch masters. And next time you see the Dutch master box or logo, start to remember these things. Remember that Draper's Guild. Remember the Dutch West India Company. Remember the connections of that tobacco and those Africans who were farming tobacco, not just in New York City and Suriname and Brazil and Curacao and Aruba and Bonaire and wherever the Dutch were. And so you'll now see that connection between that Dutch master, that tobacco, and your people.
So Thomas Paul, he shall pay annually as rent of the aforesaid plantation and Negroes 750 pounds of well-inspected tobacco. Do you think that Thomas Hall was the one planting and growing the tobacco? No, it was the Negroes that he had under his work.
So once again, you have a primary document from 1642, and again on 1642, that shows you that Negroes were involved in the tobacco. And that's referring to the Africans when they mention these Negroes who are doing these things, because these are the Africans who later get those same former tobacco plantations to live on, and it becomes Little Africa or Negro plantations or Land of the Blacks that have many different names. Yes, Africans in New York had tobacco plantations. When you see the word plantation, it typically refers to tobacco. When you see the word farm, in most cases, it will refer to agricultural produce. And then, of course, it changes, but you still keep the same concept. When you think of plantation, you think of more of cotton as per se, and not necessarily the farms, agriculture.
African tobacco farmers. See how we can make those statements? We use the primary sources, 1647. But in case one or both of those Negroes should happen to die during the lease, the lessee shall receive a rebate for them according to arbitration.
I mean, I just want to do this. I don't want to keep interrupting the video, but see, this is how we can do this live, because those who are watching, there are people in the chat if you watch the live stream, and then you get statements like the Negroes are not Africans. When in fact, in this case, if you knew anything about Thomas Hall and these particular things, these exact people are the Africans, but it's because they become the exact people when we have their names. So we can see that they are from Angola and Congo and Sao Tome and all of these places. So when they have a reference to Negro, you don't just use this. You know about the history of Thomas Hall. You know about the history of this particular, in this case, New Netherlands, and understand who is referring to. We don't have to dance around it anymore and play the silly game. When it says Negroes there, they're referring to those Africans, because we know and have the record of those Africans living and working on those particular things. And we have the names.
So, hey, you lose a nigga, we'll give you some type of discount on it. Once again, New York Historical Manuscripts, Dutch, 1638 to 1642. You can find it. Now, Africans of New Amsterdam lived in the town among them. Now, this is the actual map called the Original Dutch West India Grants. You can Google and find that. And this is the fort again. This is the Great Highway or Broadway. And these purple, blue, and yellow things are people's houses. This is all below Wall Street, because up until the 1800s, most of New Yorkers lived below Wall Street. Well, let's take a closer look. Uh-oh. When we look closer, we see something called the Negro's house on a map from the 1600s. Negro, guess who lived in this house?
The Aborigines.
Nah, we're not doing that tonight. Africans, Black folks. This is where they live. This is where the people who were became servants of the West India Company, who were of African descent and African, worked. This is downtown below Wall Street. People who are in New York, this is off of Beaver Street. Funny enough, off of Beaver Street and Marketfield Street, you're not going to find this building because the streets have changed, but this is where they lived in that area. And they live right next to, this is interesting, they live right next to somebody named Abraham Riken. Abraham Riken is the, how do you call it, the founding father of people named the Riker family. So the Negroes in the 1640s lived next to the founder of the Riker clan. And there was some little discrepancy back here. So this tenuous relationships that Africans and African Americans have with Rikers goes back 400 years. But I'll leave that at that for now. That's another true story for you. Okay, so the first African women, because I only showed you 8 men. So where did the African women come from? 1628, the Dutch Reverend Mike Calliers brought 3 Angolan women to New Amsterdam to be his servants. That's how you get the 11.
So we're clear from the ecclesiastical records of 1628. The people that he brought here were Angolan females, who he referred to as thievish, lazy, and useless trash. We know where the people came from. In 1628, we have the record. There are people in the chat who know Dutch, and y'all can read this on the left-hand side to show you that it's the translation with what you see on the right-hand side in English. And so we are aware that these people that we're talking about are Angolans in this instance. We know where they're from.
Now, what is he says? He's complaining because his wife died and he has his children, so he can't find any good help. And what he says the Angolan, the Angola female slaves, he calls them thievish, lazy, and useless trash. I beg your pardon. And here's a Dutch translation right here to the left for people who want to know what it really said. This word right here, the Angolish Slavinen, that's
Damn, I played myself trying to say that.
Angolan slave. You see? It's the Dutch. This is the English. In both, you see he is very clear on what type of people he has and who we have as those African women first introduced. And they were also introduced, if you find the records, for the comfort of the men. This is what they said. And you can find this in the ecclesiastical records of the state of New York. This is the introduction of the first 3 African women into New York City. This is the primary document for it. 1628. So now we got 11. Those 8, 3 women make 11. Let's go on. Huh. So now that we have men and women here, they form families. They create history, and they have stuff that goes generational. How do we know this? Well, they're your resource, and you're welcome for this ahead of time. The New York Genealogical and Biographical Record. You need to get volumes 116, number 3, that's to the left,
and lineage,
and volume 136, number 2. Is to the right. And in these, you will find the genealogy, marriages, and children of many of the first 11 and other free Africans. Some families are traceable for 3 or more generations. Here are your resources to find out who those people are and their history. Let's look at it. Anthony Portuguese was a slave of the Dutch West India Company, New Amsterdam, probably in the late 1620s. He was first mentioned in 1641 and was married in 1646. His wife's name probably was Maria van Angola. They both died probably before 1661. Children, also called Robert.
So what we have here, if you look at the names and you understand now how you can see a name in a historical record in Anthony Portuguese, and you just don't automatically attribute that to just being some random Spaniard or a Portuguese. You go behind history when you get further into genealogical research, and you're understanding that Catholicism plays a major role in this. So you see those beginning names, Anthony, Juan, and what have you. Those are coming from Catholicism. And with the names, there's different systems that take place. One is called patronymics, which the Africans eventually start to use, that is using the father's first name for your last name. So you'll see Bastian Angola, and his son will be named John Bastianson. This is where you get Johnson and all other type of names from. In this instance, the dominant cultures of this time were the Iberian cultures. Just like today, you could say it's like the English cultures. So many of us around the world have English type of names. At this time, it's the Iberian world that is popping, got it going. So you're going to see Spanish names everywhere. That's why Jews have Spanish names, and some of these Africans have Iberian names, and so forth and so on. So that Anthony is telling you that, and the Portuguese is signifying to you that he was taken from the Portuguese realm where they had this influence, whether it be Brazil or in they're not in West Africa, because they're not, yes, they are. The West African castles as well when it comes to slave force, when it comes to the Portuguese.
All baptism New York Dutch Church. Susanna Anthony, right? She died unmarried. Anthony, twin. He was a twin.
So there's a statement as well that we don't know where these people were from and so forth and so on. My Dutch people in here will notice this as well. His wife's name was what? Maria van Angola. What is van? Maria of or from Angola. Why do we know this connection to Angola? Because we know that the Portuguese had an influence in Angola going back 200 years before this, as well as they had forts, slave forts in Angola. And this is where they were getting Africans from to ship them around to their colonies. That's how. We know who they are. We know their origins, their names, their children.
Yes, they had twins. Joachim Anthony, he was baptized in 1643. He was married in a Hackensack church. That should give you some clue of what it went to once things started going crazy in New York. Right? Here is Anthony Ford, one of the first 11 Africans in America, in New York. Here's his children. We know him. We know his name, who he married, what his kid's name was. I'm sorry, this guy's in the way. I don't want to move right now. Under here says Francisco Nigar. You're going to see him a lot in this presentation.
So you can go back and watch the whole thing. I have this on our channel, but there's a question. So if they come in, I'll answer them. So the question is, I guess apparently we're supposed to be Afrocentrics because we're doing this. It's supposed to be a swipe, but good one, Chris, I guess. Anyway, if you watch the video in its entirety, you understand exactly when the Africans start to inherit the land. I'm giving you a background on who the people were because that seems to be the primary thing. Once we can establish who these people were and the Africans, in this presentation, you will in fact see the exact land that they own and how they get to possess the land. You will also see that the names are on the documents to show you that they are African people who own this land. And so when we make the statement that the Africans own a major part of New York City, you have the evidence in your hand to see it. It's not my words. These are the primary documents.
He was given a land grant 1662. We know him. We know a lot about him. His land was next to Simon Congo's, one of his properties. He had many. Jan Primero. He was one of the first. He was one of the Africans there. He has an interesting story, which we'll get to. Great Manuel, Big Manuel. We have his story. John of Fort Orange. We got his story. And those books that I gave you have at least 20 other.
All right, so you can go speed through it. So we'll get to the point of here's some of their marriage records. There were questions about it.
Right.
We can skim through this and you can see the exact marriage records.
Like
here it is.
Right. So they're godparents to each other's kids. Here's Samuel Angola up here.
Angola.
But they were also smart. They did two things. They didn't just make each other the godparents. They
made each other godparents, which is a West African system as well.
Made them godparents.
And they took people of influence and made them
Method
godparents.
To the madness. Stay tuned. Emmanuel de Angola.
Emmanuel of Angola.
He's got Marie de Angola as
Marie of Angola.
John Fort Orange has
Fort
Simon
Orange
Congo
was a Dutch
and Isabella
fort.
de Angola.
Isabella de
niggers.
Angola of Angola. And Simon Congo
John,
of Congo.
Francisco.
We talked about the Iberian names with Johann Francisco.
And we can see Jan Primero. Johann Primero was one of his godparents. We have more Emmanuel Swagger meaning black. He had Francisco Nigar. And Rache Negrine.
Negrine, a female version.
St. Anthony had Gosman de Nigger and Susanna von Angola as the godparents.
This is the 1600s. Chris
the Angolas was
1640s.
godparenting right and left.
So we get that. Okay, there's your baptismal record. So we have marriage,
Christianized and baptized. Read this with me.
This is why they put them in the church.
Places of Amsterdam in 1664. As to baptisms, the Negroes occasionally request that we should baptize their children, but we have refused to do so. Why? Partly on account of their lack of knowledge and of faith, and here we go. Partly because of the worldly and perverse aims on the part of the said Negroes. They wanted nothing else than to deliver their children from bodily slavery without striving for piety and Christian birth.
So why, pardon me, hopefully he's not double talking now. So why did the Africans decide to join this Christianity? Was it because of sweet baby Jesus initially? No, it was not. Because as early as 1664, we have earlier records, the Christians and the reverends themselves are showing you that they are trying to trick us to become Christians. Why? Because in order to be free, the first thing you had to do was Christians, because there were rules that Christians cannot enslave other Christians. We understood this and we played the system. And so we went and we joined the churches and we got our children baptized so they could begin to negotiate and fight for their freedom. They weren't Jesus freaks initially. Did we start drinking the Jesus juice and start believing? Yes, somewhere on the line. But the use of Christianity was a tool for you to get free.
Choose. Are we understanding why they did it? Because they knew the world that they were living in order for you to get free, one thing you definitely had to do was say you was a Christian. And so they couldn't enslave another Christian. So they was trying to get their kids baptized so their kids could be free. And they was trying to get baptized in the church so they could be free. How do I know this? Because it's coming from the reverends at the time's mouth telling you why these Africans were getting their children baptized and themselves baptized. Do I need to see any more?
Okay, so now I'm going to just speed up and we'll get to the fun part. I guess everybody wants it. We won't even get into the murder of Juan Primero. This is how they get free for all those who are interested. I guess we got to go through this. How do they get free, right?
Here in the Netherlands, where they shall be able to earn their livelihood by agriculture on the land shewn and granted to them on conditions that they, here's the kicker, this is why I was half freedom, that the above Negroes shall be bound to pay for the freedom they receive. Ain't that about something? Each man for himself annually, as long as he lives to the West India Company or deputies here, 30 shekels of maize or wheat, peas or beans, and one fat hog, valued at 20 guilders, which 30 shekels and the hog, they, the Negroes, each for himself.
So basically, when they get their freedom, the reason that you might see it says half freedom, because they will basically have responsibilities for their freedom to give these produce and this one fat hog back to the company every year on penalty of maybe being reverted back to slavery. So that's what that's about. If you notice, it's produce in particular, because one of the main exploitations they wanted you for was obviously, like I said, agriculture. Although they freed you, they could not lose that access to exploit those particular things that you were bringing. It's kind of like an early version of some sharecropping, if you think about it like that, that you had you on the penalty of going back. So these are some of the manumission documents, the actual documents on how they got free.
Actual one is from Domingo Anthony
so you
and his wife, late slaves in the company's service.
So where are the records for how they got free? We just saw the process. This right here is an actual document. And there's other ones in here. So now we'll get to I guess the point that people find really interesting. They eventually get half freedom and full freedom. And
freedom. Because they kept petitioning and kept fighting. We don't want to be just half free, and we want our children to be free. So 1664, that same group from the last image.
Okay. We get it. Yeah. Oh, that my computer freeze.
Anyway, he owns this document. This is an actual document, 1667, written by the English governor.
Grant from the governor for a bit.
That's what I was talking about. Make that with the burning candle. So these are the two. This is the book that you may want to take a look at. To see some of the information I'm about to present in the next slide. This is the
computer's on to act up, so it may go blank, but we're gonna get to this as fast as we can before it goes haywire. If it does, you're welcome to view this online, and we'll just speed up to where they lived and blah blah blah.
New York City. I was visiting when tell you that this is all right. We have Domingo Anthony's property here. You get a closer view. He's off of Baird and Mulberry Street. This is the the actual grant right here, Domingo Anthony, 1643. This is where it's located in Albany. And tell you, see what we have next. This is Greenwich Village. This is Washington Portuguese's property. Waterway that they use that ran through all their property. This is Paulo Angola's property on West and McDougal Street, the heart of Greenwich Village. People know Wall Street basketball. Just out here, which is awesome. But this is Washington Square Park, where people know this is African land, land of the past. Why?
It's going a little wonky right now, and I don't want it to cut off. But please, I want to say this.
I don't know that.
Shut up, Alexa. I just want people to go and check out the full video on our channel, please, to understand what was going on. And yeah, I got to close a lot of pages. Jesus, I'm working on like 17 different projects at once, and the computer don't want to work with me. I'm scared to close them because I got this weird ADD about it, I guess. But, you know, it's something I got to work through. Anyway, please, you know, look at this video, because you're going to get to the points and toward the end where you see the actual land grant and see them being owners. And just like in this image, if you can still see it, there's the map, as well as you'll see the actual land grant and where you can find the original. Yes, I got 100 tabs open. It's pathetic, y'all. I really apologize, but hey, man, this is how nerves operate. It's not pretty sometimes, I guess. So if you do appreciate it, you know, if y'all want to donate to the Daddy Donation Computer Fund, we're happy accepting donations, no obligations at all. If you appreciate the content that is presented and you like more, you know, we appreciate it. But besides that, invest in Evernote. Damn, people hating on my computers like that. Believe it or not, I got a high-powered Mac, y'all. I just got, look at it, I got 7 million tabs open on 3 different joints right here. Let me stop sharing. Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be working a little better now that I stopped sharing. Yes, thank you, Chris Connors. Donate to the Danny Fund. Keep NBK alive. So that was just one thing. That's now, you know, peace, George Macon. How are you, brother? This goes back and links to our previous video when Rob Bourne and I were discussing Peter Stuyvesant at his statue. Yes, I got to get a PayPal and a Patreon and all that fun stuff. I will set that up. Haven't done it, you know, whatever. But it'd be cool because then we could expand. But anyway, what I want people to think is important. Look in your own neighborhood. This isn't New York centric. Look in your own area now and begin. You got your phone in your hand, which is a supercomputer, and Google the names of those people on those statues that you're walking past, or Google some of your street names and see what they connect to, or Google the name of the college or high school that you might have in your community, so you can begin to put the pieces together. And yes, you're right, Tech News. I do need more RAM for this computer. But you will begin to then see the links with these things right where you are, right where you stand, and you can put these pieces back together. We started this journey with the late celebration of 420 that led us into the Dutch Masters. And from looking at the Dutch Masters box, we took a walk or a journey through history to show the connection to those Dutch Masters to not only enslavement, but how the process and the mechanics of things were working during that time period. The connection of those guilds, which if you're interested in, you could do further research on. And so you don't just go with the other thing, oh, the Freemasons, this, that, and whatever. The Freemasons are connected to a much larger system that we've talked about in previous videos called the guild system. Then you understand how the exploitation of labor and resources worked and how they set up these things. We can understand the mechanics. So what does that do for us? Now in our pursuit to search and form of reparations or get some reparative justice, we can go from general to being specific at the entities, institutions, organizations that we want this this reparative justice from. So we can show how these companies actually benefited and made Bristol in England what it was, or made New York what it was, or made Charleston what it was. And these are the exact records. Instead of just blaming it on the boogeyman white man, we can get down to specifics now. So one particular group comes up to address in their local town how the particular factory or whatever benefit from it. That's a local struggle that you can have to get some reparative justice right in your neighborhood. If you're aware that, you know, Johnson Brothers Mill was involved in the enslavement of your people in your town, for instance. This is the point of it, not to just, you know, romanticize and try to go live back in the 1600s or the 1910s with Garvey or whatever it is, but to understand our story, first of all, understand the continuum of what we've constantly struggled to go through in our fight that we've never given up, but also understand that, you know what, get this, just jog this memory and get this info down, but like, yo, we ain't forgot. We have not forgotten. But it seems like we